everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. A new week starting a little bit late thanks to that 3-day weekend. Ooh, our 3-day weekend, sweet. You know, there should be some kind of movement pushing for them to become the norm. There's a lot of, I get it. There's a lot of things that we gotta be worried about and fighting for, but I feel like we could make a little bit of room for this. But anyway, following this 3-day weekend, our whole schedule has been thrown asunder. Mondays are gone. They're not fantastic anymore. Tuesday is here. It's a big news day? What? Jayar Jackson, say it ain't so. Big news has now invaded Tuesdays.
I mean, you know, when big news takes over, big news takes over. I mean, I'm not the one that controls it. I'm just here to talk about it. You know, I mean, this is above my pay grade. But as you point out, these past few days on this beautiful 3-day weekend has left me with literally no sleep. So I'm super tired, John. I've already had my coffee, but I need to kick in something a little higher. So in case you guys don't know, Tang has all of the caffeine that you need to make sure you get through your morning. Tang, the official drink of Jayar's Candies.
Don't do that, first of all. Second of all, I'm 90% sure you're joking. Tang does not have caffeine, does it? It can't. No orange beverage has caffeine.
I know it's got a lot of sugar because that just hit me right in the back of my.
Okay, so we're gonna die. Me because I have been drinking a lot of caffeine. Him because he's becoming Tang before our very eyes. We have a lot of news that we're gonna be talking about. A lot of stuff that we have to get to. But I want to start off with a public service announcement following from a conversation Jayar and I were just having. It is as pointless, maybe more, than any appeal I make to the American people. I have no influence, nothing I say matters. And this least of all, especially because this is one of the areas where a lot of people agree with me. Stop with the fireworks, you bastard. Stop. You can do a show, do a thing in the water that people have to go to, and it happens for a solid, awesome 15 minutes. Do not just set off fireworks for 4 hours at night. I can't take it. My dog will never be the same. It's too much and it has to stop. And it's not just on the crazy people that set the fireworks. It's on all of us, okay? Because like with the cops, if one cop did something wrong and all the rest of them came down hard on him, it would stop, but they don't. And we need to put as much pressure on the fireworks people. Basically, we're bad cops. That's what I'm saying. You're a bad cop until you help me with this.
I guess the problem is the problem is the fireworks lobby that apparently has bought off all of our politicians to allow this to continue to go on in my neighborhood. I'm talking like the next door app people now. They need to go out. They need to be out. Well, I mean, it's just the way it is, bro. I'm tired of it. Honestly, I was preparing a counter assault, but I didn't do it just for legal purposes.
Thank you.
I did not go out there and confront the would-be bomb throwers. But no, there's a chance for people to act like they're shooting off guns without shooting off guns. It's just sometimes it gets the exhilarating part of it out of them, and it puts anger in the rest of us.
And it could be guns. I don't know. It is impossible to know if they're actually guns that are being shot. And by the way, you might live in an area where it's not as common and fireworks are nice. That's fine. And I know fireworks is just a thing, right? They've been around forever. I don't think so. I don't think that this is the same situation as it was in the 80s for a couple of different reasons. One, I like to imagine that in the past, generally people set off fireworks when they could see them. No, now they just set off loud noises in the middle of the day for absolutely no reason. Two, it's great, capitalism, it makes everything cheap. Fireworks are too cheap. They really are too cheap. They need to be more expensive. It should be like Chris Rock said about ammunition. It should be $5,000 for a firework. So if somebody sets off a firework, you know that they paid for it at least. And three, oh yeah, they gotta be louder than they were, right, Jayar? These are just bombs that are going off. I don't even think there's a visual component. It is just a bomb that is happening.
Every summer they give stats about who people getting killed by gun violence and stuff because it takes an uptick in summertime. People are out and they're being stupid and having fun and getting drunk. So that all happens, but there's probably an uptick in deaths on the 4th or injuries from fireworks related injuries. There's an NHL player who died over the weekend because he was in a hot tub and one of the mortar shells hit him, I think in the chest or something. 24-year-old NHL goalie, his life is over because, hey, let's make some loud noises and shoot it at each other.
Yeah. Yeah, this is basically America spends like 53 weeks, for the most part, almost all of us, united saying, look at all those idiots in their gender reveal parties setting off bombs. And then one week we're all like, hey, let's do it. And everybody just does it. No, it's just as stupid then. And someone in the Twitch chat was like, I think it was my husband fights fires and I'm a vet. It's the worst time. Yeah. Like, don't we all love dogs and don't we all love to drive them mad for 1 week? So I apologize for the unnecessary rant that has little to do with the news, but we're a sick culture and this has to be one of the areas. Lowest hanging fruit that we fix, please.
I mean, I'm not saying anything, John, but Juneteenth, the real full Independence Day for America, there wasn't this kind of fireworks. But on what's recognized as Independence Day in America, there are violent fireworks. So I continue to see these comparisons. Which one is the peaceful, quiet evening? Which one is the loud, violent evening?
Yep. Maybe it's cultural, that's all I'm saying. What's up with us? Okay. Well, if you like loud noises, we're gonna give them to you right into your ear holes here on the show today, but about other topics as well. So we got a lot of stuff we're gonna be talking about for the next 80 minutes or so. So please stay tuned. Please hit the like button and share the stream as we launch into the news. And you can send us messages, as many of you already are, in the super chat and on Twitch and tweets and all that. We'll be responding as we go through. But with that, Jayar, are you ready to get into some news?
I'm ready now. I got my tang. I'm ready.
Awesome. And before I do like my formal starting the story thing, we're gonna talk about this because I think it's important. It's not sexy. It's not gonna get any views. Like, I know that we're supposed to care more about that stuff, but this is important, so we're gonna check in on it. Okay, so please bear with us as we talk about this stuff. COVID. Sorry, that's my bad. The pandemic has not yet ended, despite some saying that is the case. But that is not to say that there aren't some reasons to feel better, at least briefly, before it turns around and gets worse again. So I'm gonna try to give you a little bit of good news with your bad news. I'm gonna mix it together. So good news, COVID is now no longer the leading cause of death in the US. In fact, it has fallen to 5th or 7th, depending on how you look at it. If we bring up this chart, you can see that at one point it had spiked so that it was the worst, but now it has fallen below things like heart disease, cancer, stroke, respiratory illnesses, those sorts of things. So the sort of normal chronic things that regrettably kill thousands of Americans on a daily basis. So it has fallen, that is good. And the reason it has fallen so much is if you look at the number of cases per day, COVID has become much more rare. We're on the extreme right of that screen. You can see that dark winter. Remember, like when people were predicting the dark winter and then the right was laughing at them. Why are you pretending it's gonna be a dark winter? Yeah, well, look at that thing. That's insane. It didn't need to happen. So that's good. But a little bit of mixed news in this because I wanna show you the numbers. Now, overall, deaths in the last 2 weeks are down about 38%. We had on the 5th, 194 deaths reported. Now, it's a weekend day, so there's a lag. It's gonna be a little bit higher, but whatever, we're below 300. Which is great. We have not been below 300 deaths a day for over a year now. The bad news is tests are down a good bit too, negative 17%. Cases are up 5%. Now, cases being up 5% isn't great when the Delta variant's going around and all that. What makes it worse though is that in nearly half of all states, it's trending upward. So it's not 5% on average in every state, which would be bad in its own way. It's going down in a lot of places because they've been vaccinated. And in other places, it's up fairly significantly, as you'll see in just a minute. Vaccinations are going down actually. We're getting fewer than 1 million doses being administered on most days. And less than half of the country is fully vaccinated. I know we haven't checked in on that in a bit, but it's still true. Less than half are fully vaccinated. We got 47%. Now, thankfully, 65 and up people, the numbers are better. 78% are fully vaccinated, 88% have at least one dose, and they're of course in the most risk. So that is good news. But we're not done with this vaccination wise, except that we sort of are in a different way. And Jayar, I want to give you a chance to respond. I just want to put up this chart so you can see state by state how the cases are going. And some of them, like 5% overall in the US, but Arkansas is up 121%. Missouri 45, Florida 63, others are down. but some significantly up as the Delta variant starts to spread like crazy. So there's some good news there, there's some bad news there. Jayar, what do you think?
So in Arkansas is the one that's up 121%. Look, I think that's the leading one on these, along with Florida at 63%. Yeah, so I see headlines about the trends and where it's going, and then Biden states versus Trump states that are feeling the effect more. And this is what I have seen, because I have family in Michigan. I got some folks and friends and family and friends in Missouri, and I'm asking, like, on a general basis, like, is it harder to get to some of these vaccines? Is the rollout that much more difficult? Because we're in Southern California and it was pretty easy. It was widely available to the point where people who weren't looking for it were getting solicited it as if they were like outside of a Trader Joe's, and it was Greenpeace people walking around going, "Hey, why haven't you gotten your vaccine yet?" I'm sorry to Greenpeace, but you got to stop telling your people to be such a-holes. Anyway, it was widely available, so if you wanted to hear, you got it. And so maybe the rollout was the problem, is what I'm thinking. Maybe it's a combination of the fact that people have been told they don't need it, or hey, I already got it, so therefore I'm immune already. All this stuff, but it's probably a little, as I was thinking, it's probably a combination of both. And how do we fix that again now? And also, how much do we have to really care about the folks that don't want to? It's come down to a personal decision, as we've always said. I mean, not as we've always said, but as people like to say in American, personal decision, personal responsibility, personal responsibility. Hey, we're at the personal responsibility levels now. And if you choose not to, that's up to you. And many people that choose not to won't die. I'm happy for you. That's great. And there's some that are gonna choose not to that will die.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, you know what? That I think is something that we should focus on. So there are still people that are getting sick. There are still people who are still dying in this pandemic. Cases are going up in some states while deaths are overall down. So who is dying? I mean, if you've been watching for a while, you know that we predicted kind of like this situation more than 6 months ago, that it would remain, but it would kind of be a thing where there's some people who can't get the vaccine. There's some people who might not have had access to it yet, maybe in the US, but it's mostly people sort of opting into this, unfortunately, and the numbers are starting to bear that out. I wanna show you a bit of video of Dr. Anthony Fauci talking about the efficacy of the vaccine and how it's influencing who gets it and who doesn't.
Look at the number of deaths, about 99.2% of them are unvaccinated, about 0.8% are vaccinated. No vaccine is perfect, but when you talk about the avoidability of hospitalization and deaths, Chuck, it's really sad and tragic that most all of these are avoidable and preventable.
Yes, most of all of them are avoidable and preventable. So regrettably, because our media sucks, you've probably seen more headlines about a blank person who was vaccinated, got the virus anyway, rather than what you should know, which is virtually everyone who's gotten sick isn't vaccinated, and that you could massively cut your chances if you were to get it. Even, by the way, against the Delta variant and the other variants that are coming. So recent information out of Israel. I say this because maybe there's a chance right-wingers will care about it if that's the source for the information, but the Pfizer COVID vaccine appears to largely prevent hospitalization in serious cases, but it's significantly less effective against preventing the spread of the Delta variant of the coronavirus. So it isn't necessarily as successful as stopping people from becoming a little bit symptomatic and spreading the Delta variant rather than classic COVID, but the sickness you get tends to be much less severe than it would be if you didn't have it. And there's another study from researchers at the Hebrew University and Hadassah University Medical Center said that the Pfizer vaccine is 60 to 80% effective against infection from the Delta strain, which is obviously lower. But I've looked into it, and no vaccination is 0% effective against the Delta strain. So it's still beating that. And unfortunately, like it's still like we said, Jayar, like a lot of people have access to it and just aren't taking it, and it is starting to spread. Not universally, but there are pockets of some states where we're seeing a lot more cases, and it is possible that we could be entering into another wave, but it's gonna be a very different wave than we've had so far.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes, because there's all these factors that push people to this degree, and you may see where those people's thought processes may lay out in this new approach or this new thread to how these things are spread now. You may see it in certain pockets that you've heard certain pockets talk about how much disdain there is for the virus. I mean, when it comes to science and math and numbers, they kind of don't change just because we want them to. They'll change based off of actions and results. That's how facts and figures work. There's a cause and then there's an effect. You know, it's this whole thing about science I heard. And when the cause is happening and then the effect is what you've changed or what you've altered to make sure the effect is different, and some choose and some not to, the numbers are just gonna fall into place for the way it is. That's just how science works. Nobody can control that. And I feel like I'm talking to a kindergarten class, but that's the argument that we're having, is whether or not what has been put forward to help with the effects of something, if you don't choose to take part in it, that's fine. I'm not mad at anyone for that. I still feel like a lot of the anger comes from people who are mad for people who have taken those precautions. Hey, if you think they're gonna all die and grow, a new leg out of their neck, laugh at them when the leg starts growing out of their neck. Just sit back and wait then. I don't get the anger over it. Now, there's also the anger from the other side. I don't want to negate it completely from like a lot of left folks, or even neither, I don't call it left or progressives, just people who've decided to accept the science that maybe are angry at other folks because they do affect their communities, but that's beginning to lessen now. It's gonna affect the communities that have either not had that access to it, which sadly would be the case, or ones who've just chosen not to. We're gonna see it as it comes, and all we can do now is just watch.
Yeah. Last point I want to make on this, someone in the chat, I think it was Tyler, said all the waves have been different, which is totally true. Every one of the waves has been different, but the last big wave we got was, over the winter into January, February, and the beginning of March and all that. And that was before the vast majority of people had access to the vaccine. This is the first one that we're gonna have where effectively, if you wanted it, you could have had it. For the most part, not for everyone, but for the vast majority. And we could potentially have a wave of just people who've chosen not to. And I understand, we're fake news, we're bastards, we're commies. I don't want you to die, conservatives. It doesn't have to happen. You're choosing to. And I have tried for 1.5 years to get through to you. And I just can't, because unfortunately you've chosen to go with other people. And that is where we will turn right now. I apologize to the audience. You had 3 days off for this, but I'm going to inflict this person on you again. Because you need to understand that there's tens of millions of people who believe that she's far more credible on this topic than me or Dr. Fauci or Jayar or anyone. So here's what happened. I happened upon a tweet by Congresswoman Marjorie Greene, and it launched me down a bit of a rabbit hole. And I'm gonna start off as she did eventually. There's many tweets of this thread, and I'm not going to read all of them to you, but in the 6th, she said this: no one cares about the Delta variant or any other variant. They are over COVID, and there's no amount of fear-based screaming from the media that will ever force Americans to shut down again. Forced masks and vaccines will cause Dems to lose big. All voters are over COVID. So it's gonna get even worse after that. But I wanna start off with like the things that have caused some people to be censured. Like Ilhan Omar, for instance. He's like reading into something she said and thinking, does that sort of evoke something negative that we should be more sensitive about? There's no evoking here. There's no reading into here. No one cares about the Delta variant or any other variant. The Delta variant killed hundreds of Americans yesterday, certainly over the last week or so. It is killing so many people, nobody cares about it. Oh, sorry, did you lose a family member? Did you lose a friend? No one cares, shut up about it. Why are you crying about this person that you loved that died needlessly? No one cares, stop whining about it. That is what this Congresswoman said. I'm not reading into it. I'm not speculating, I'm not going one step farther. No one cares about the Delta variant or any other variant, this Congresswoman says. This thing that is still killing and making sick hundreds, thousands of Americans every day. And that was just the 6th tweet in a thread. And nobody cares. She could just say it, she won't get any trouble. She's not gonna lose any donors for this. No one cares about the thing that might have just killed your mom or your kid or your grandfather, whatever. I lost a family member, many people watching this lost family members, lost friends. Families that are still grieving, no one cares. Stop talking about it, stop worrying about it. No one cares about it. And that's just the beginning, Jayar. It's gonna get worse, but.
Yeah, the first part of this is no one cares if your friends or family or anyone you've ever known has died of this, right? The other part of this is that, look, the voters are gonna vote down Dems big on this. There's no matter fear-based screaming that will force Americans to shut down again. So she's worried about shutting down, which again, why would Americans, whoever you think are your opponents in America, want America to shut down? If you haven't noticed, you've seen lots of Americans who got vaccinated who are now back to doing barbecues in their backyard, having friends over and posting about it. I don't think you can continue down this narrative that your opponents in America are against living, that they're against going out, that they're against having fun. I'm not sure how that's gonna sell, because you go, oh, look at those Antifa leftists. They just like to stay in their house. I thought they're always out screaming and violently confronting you. Exactly. Which one is it? Are they at home or do they love to be out? Jesus, it's constant with the stupidity. Oh, and also all voters are over COVID. Forced masks and vaccines will cause Dems to lose big. That was last year's talking point. We're over the forced mask because people are getting vaccinated. Crazy how that works. You can't keep pushing the same thing and thinking, and again, this is only about voters. That's what this push is for. Never once does she talk about the lives of people are improving. Look at everybody making all this extra money now, things are opening up, because none of that is on their radar. They don't care about people getting back to their lives. They care about pushing voters into thinking that they are the godly ones and everyone else is the evil ones, so vote for us. That's the bottom line.
Jayar, can you imagine if like an immigrant coming across the border killed someone? One immigrant killed one person, and Rashida Tlaib said, I don't care. Done. The whole thing's done. Every Democrat is canceled.
Yeah.
Hundreds a day.
Well,
amazing. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there. By the way, that was the sixth. I don't even remember what the fifth was. There's some, like, it's literally everything. So she does two things. She attacks like a lot of people who all happen to be black randomly, while claiming that racism doesn't exist. And two, all of her tweets basically end with every American agrees with me on this. So wonder that you guys lost the election. So weird how that works out. But anyway, she goes on to say, and I gotta throw up a little bit more of this. Dems' embrace of the progressive squad, AKA communists, are going to be their downfall. People don't want the Green New Deal and don't want to be forced into dependency on Chinese batteries in their government mandated EVs. No matter how many lies AOC tells on Chinese TikTok.
Oh my God.
Because you gotta fit in a bit of the Chinese stuff. It's like you gotta get that too. It's not enough to do the Islamic stuff or about Mexico. It's also China because of TikTok. Why not?
Why not?
I want a government mandated EV. Give me one. Give me one right now. Come on, I want that with the Chinese batteries. Here's an idea, Marjorie. If you don't want Chinese batteries in them, how about we subsidize the development of American battery technology? Doesn't that seem like a good idea? Maybe then it could be American batteries in your government mandated TikTok that the progressive squad, AKA communists, want.
It's funny, Marjorie. There's these phones people carry around. They say Samsung, you know, that American company. They've got these things called batteries in them that everyone has and uses. You know, those Chinese batteries that are taking over America. They took over a long time ago with their batteries. And their Hyundais and their Hondas and their Toyotas and their Nissans and their Infinitis and their Lexuses. Jesus, oh my God, the Japanese and the Chinese are already here. The Koreans are there too. It's crazy, those scary people have implemented.
Technically, I think Samsung's Korean, but yes.
Yeah, no, but all of them. Like, by the way, it doesn't matter. Yes. It doesn't matter. Chinese connects to everything that's not American. You know that, right?
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't assume that she could tell the difference. But anyway, yes, okay, we're gonna break in 1 sec because there's just so much racism just going through. She just has like, everybody hates Kamala, even like literally that's one of the tweets. So she goes on to say, everyone hates Ilhan Omar, both sides of the aisle. She is an anti-Semitic, hate America, ungrateful refugee who married her brother and broke the law to get him in the country. So everybody hates her. I guess I hate her. Jayar, why do you hate her so much? Everybody hates her. She's anti-Semitic. She's so anti-Semitic that it's basically like Marjorie Greene is being sent to a concentration camp. Like that's the next analogy. Like, oh wait, so now you're back to having a problem with anti-Semitism after all of what you've said and done. It's just okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna read anymore, but it's still out there and like, she's so popular. She's so popular. It's so stupid and grammatically just a mess. Anyway,
This is the legacy of Donald Trump. I'm telling you, it doesn't have to make sense as long as you throw in the buzzwords, you're in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she goes on to do an S-hole countries thing too. That's like literally the next, that's tweet 14. So she's just taking his lines now, by the way. And she says that if you don't like the flag, you should be banished from the country. You should be canceled if you don't love the flag as much as her. So again, don't buy any of the cancel culture stuff. Anyway, with that said, we've got a lot of other news that we need to get to, so we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, updates on the tragedy in Surfside. We'll be talking about that, as well as the sea. It's on fire after this. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see what's going on. I saw Bart typing out a comment, and I'm worried. I'm gonna give him one more minute to finish, and let's see what he has to say. But in the members' comments, Ripperduce says, "Hello all, our town was just having this discussion that it's time to move on from the archaic ritual of fireworks. We're gonna hire a video artist from now on." Well, good luck. The thing is, it's not really the towns anymore. It's just regular people going insane. Robin says, "Have you seen that Republicans are introducing a bill that would say the military cannot force service members to get the COVID vaccine? It says they have autonomy over their own bodies." I guarantee soldiers are required to get many vaccines before they travel abroad. I guarantee it. Chris Staley, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. Thank you for becoming a part of the Dragon Squad. Appreciate that. Okay, Bart's still going, so I'm gonna let him finish. Grandma Sunshine Dragon says in the super chat, "Thunder Vest, John. They help dogs who are afraid of things like fireworks because they comfort the dogs." No, but see, that's my nickname is Thunder Vest because I comfort the dogs. I was just hugging him basically for hours. Goes on to say, "Hi Jayar, hugs to my TDR TYT family and hugs to the Dragon Squad." Thank you, Grandma Sunshine Dragon. Appreciate that. Late Bloomer says, "My teeny tiny 2.2 pound Chihuahua freaks out with loud noises. I had to send him away to my daughters to prevent him having a heart attack this last weekend." Yeah. Edward Muertos says, "Come to La Puente. It sounds like the Iron Dome almost all year round. A mortar shook my house from about 2 blocks away 2 days ago. Accidentally sent this to TYT YouTube earlier. Sorry about that." Yeah, I think, but the thing is, like, so many people seem to agree with us, but all it takes is just a little bit to keep setting off the fireworks and everything. Okay, Jason R says, best deterrent I found for firework happy neighbors is nighttime lawn watering on July 4th and New Year's. Oops, wet street too, my bad. Does that work? Would that work? I don't know. Okay, I'll try it next year. Ray Turner says, but John, America, F yeah. Yeah, that's basically it. Okay, Franklin Sharpslicer has a poem for us saying, "John and Jayar, great to see you by far. Sturgis bike rally next month, which may give COVID a bump. Until then, Tomorrow War was great. Watch it before it's too late. Dragos do well while we look into hell." I think Franklin might be trying to troll me into watching Tomorrow War because everything I heard was not that positive about the Tomorrow War. I don't know if you've heard anything.
This is a film, huh?
It's a film. It's Chris Pratt. Anyway, okay. Peter Hamby says, "MTG's racist Twitter rant against Cori Bush worse than a rant about COVID. It constantly makes me ask, what have people of color ever done to you?" And we wait for their response, waiting for an answer. I actually didn't see her rant about Cori Bush. I heard that Ted Cruz was having a massive issue with Cori Bush because remember, you're supposed to love everything about America, and if you don't, you're a traitor who should leave. Or you should think that America sucks and needs to be made great again. That's okay, you can do that. You can not love America that way, but if you don't love it like in a not vague way, you can love it, you can not love it in a vague way, but if you don't love it for specific things that you want to change, that's not acceptable for some reason. Sort of weird. Anyway, over in Twitch, let's see. Tell me what to put, gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you very much for that. For Love by Sarah, subscribed for the 5th month and says, "So grateful to have found TYT, TDR and all things related. You have all reignited my interest in politics and helped me realize I'm in fact progressive and not just on the left. Hashtag Bezos Bucks here and subbed on YouTube. I support you all 1000%. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. I'm glad we were able to help." And Z Huddle gifted a tier 1 sub as well. Z Huddle, as always, thank you so much. Okay, lots more to get to in our next break, but even more news to get to before then. So more news coming at you. We'll see you in just a few. Welcome back, everyone. Let's jump back to some news, including just about one of the most tragic stories of the past couple of months. Over the weekend, the search the search for bodies in the tragic condo collapse Surfside has continued, and we have updated information about that. The death toll had, when we produced this, risen to 28. I have since seen that it has risen to 32 confirmed deaths. It is possible that by the time you watch this, if you're not watching live, that it could even be higher. 3 bodies were discovered overnight after the remainder of the partially collapsed building was demolished and rescue efforts resumed. A 4th body was found later in the day on Monday. 26 of 28 victims at that point have already been identified. 191 people are now accounted for, while 117 remain missing, which means that, as devastating as the numbers are already, it is seems much more than likely that the numbers will be far, far higher. I mean, if it is as bad as it seems like it could possibly be, this could be one of the most devastating losses of life in a single tragic incident in literally many, many years here in the US. Now, there's another angle on this that we want to get to in just a second, but Jayar, I don't believe that we've talked about the collapse of the condo and all that. Any thoughts?
Well, as information leaked out to find out what was the cause of it, and you find the negligence based off of that. The first thing I thought, we're talking about, I mean, I'm not to relitigate that. I assume a lot of people have seen it with the way that they built the pool on a concrete surface. I think it was above like the parking garage, and leaks happened after that because of the way that they didn't plan forward with that. Just structural mistakes or oversights when they were building this building. So the first thing I wondered was, so the developer for this, where else have they built similar style buildings?
Yeah, because that's true.
Talk about prevention. Let's find out if we're seeing the mistakes that were made by one particular group or developer. Let's find out where else they potentially made these mistakes. Let's not wait for this to happen again, potentially somewhere else, for us to discover that more people could die. That's the first thought. Yeah, and also in addition to that, we talk about how we're discovering more and more bodies, and rescue workers are doing this and are demolishing parts of the building. Just think of the mindset you now are in. These rescue workers and finding bodies now, weeks after the collapse. This is really brutal, and I hope they're getting help, because this is something we overlook a lot. We congratulate and shake the hands of our firemen and rescue people, but we don't think about the toll it takes on their mental health, what they've seen and what they've had to experience, and the way they've had to recover people's bodies.
It's got to be devastating.
Yeah.
I'm like, we throw around the term of like, I can't imagine, but I can't imagine. I'm not really going to try, because even that might be pretty awful. Yeah, absolutely terrible. And a couple of the stories that we've mentioned over the past week on the pre-show, just a reminder, there was a pair of 2 grandparents that were found in bed. Their bodies were recovered. There was this story that almost certainly was a result of like something to do with power or something, but it was a woman who had I believe it was her parents were believed lost in the building. She got multiple phone calls from their number in the initial hours and was like terrified that they might be alive, buried, trying to call out. The authorities say it's almost certainly just something with the phone line being broken that's causing it to call, but why specifically that number? So there's just a lot of tragedy to go around here. Now we want to briefly turn to maybe something good that can come out of this is them actually taking seriously the regulations of buildings like this and the need to have periodic safety updates, checking to make sure that things are safe. Because as Jayar was pointing out, with this building, there appear to have been a lot of different warnings. Not just that structurally it was built initially in a way that was suspect, but there had been like signs of persistent leaking and things like that that were ignored. Yeah. People who'd left the board in advance, and a lot of just people not caring. It costs money to check these things out and to make necessary renovations. And generally people are willing to risk killing other people to save a little bit of money, unfortunately. But now at least, so long as the media is staying focused on this, there might be a little bit more pressure to actually look into these things. And Miami-Dade County officials said last week that they were now prioritizing reviews of 24 multi-story buildings that either had failed major structural or electrical inspections required after 40 years of existence, or had not submitted the reports in the first place. But the county's own records show that 17 of those cases had been open for a year or more. 2 cases were against properties owned by the county itself. The oldest case had sat unresolved since 2008. Yeah. So like everybody's like, woo, Obama won when it started. And they've just waited for 13 years. hoping that nothing terrible happens. And there's a lot that we could go into, but basically, regulations for multi-story structures like this tend to be more stringent than for single-family homes, for obvious reasons. They're far larger and they tend to be in areas that are more dangerous to build in, including near coastlines where there's danger of not just water, but also high winds, hurricanes, and things like that. But despite that, they also tend to be built by large corporations that have a lot of lawyers that can drag these things out and avoid having to comply with the regulations that are actually there. And so let's jump through just a couple of examples of this. Bay Harbor Islands has struggled to bring all of its buildings into compliance with tough recertification rules. 14 structures were supposed to submit 40-year inspection reports back in 2020. 6 of those never responded to notices, according to records. As of last week, Town Records listed only 1 building as having successfully completed the process. So it is one thing that just they don't submit the information. But like when it's requested from them and they just ignore it, I get that 2020 was a bad year, but do you think that you individually would be allowed to do that?
Oh.
But corporations are allowed to do that. And there are at least dozens of people living in every one of these buildings, hundreds of people living in some of these buildings. Instead, I'll get around to it. It's busy, 2020. Someday I'll get around to it. And hopefully one of the silver linings coming out of this tragedy is that maybe the people in charge of this stuff will be a little bit more insistent that the buildings and the companies that control them actually respond for once.
We'll see, because we've seen tragedies when it comes to corporations, which we're gonna get to on a fire in the middle of the ocean. We've seen regulations that are supposed to be put on corporations and large builders and anything that ends up in a tragedy. And we've seen the build up to that happen. And then when it doesn't get changed, we think, oh, now finally things are gonna change. We've seen it with guns, we've seen it with all kinds of stuff. Whenever there's a company or corporation that could be responsible for it, we kind of hope it blows over and we go on to it. Oh, it's just one isolated event, we'll move on. Hopefully it'll be better next time. And the more and more people are starting to see, there's this automatic trust in corporations to do the right thing in this country. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. We just have a general thing like, oh, well, this is America. This isn't some third world country where buildings just collapse. If something happens to a building, it's because some natural disaster, a fire, an earthquake, a tornado hits someone's house. That's how buildings get destroyed in this country. No. These types of things is what leads to it. But we have this trust in our system that is totally flawed, because no one's gonna see these types of things before it happens. Like, oh, that there's some people who've ignored the notices for 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna talk about that until it happens. And if you think these regulations are suddenly gonna change because of it, the same people who didn't care if people could die still don't care that people have died.
Yeah, it's not the sort of thing that certainly gets national attention. The one chance was maybe John Oliver would do a thing on it or whatever. And in this case, I don't think he did. Usually he's ahead of the curve, but yeah. So we'll see. Look, these buildings along the water, like when we talk about the effect of climate change and sea level rise, it's worse effects of massive storms and things like that. Devastating. It's going to take a toll on these buildings. You can't get slammed by ever worsening and becoming more common hurricanes year after year after year without it doing some damage to the buildings. And so if you combine that with lax bureaucracy, corporations that don't care whether the buildings are safe, you could see a lot more buildings collapse like this. Okay, apparently we are racing through time. Okay, we'll take our second break now. When we come back, the sea is on fire. I can't wait to go to that. But more news after this. Geez, the hour is passing by so fast. Okay, so let's see what Bart had to say. Gentlemen, I totally agree with both of you regarding your take on the 4th of July in LA. I would also add to the list, the air quality was terrible and just as bad, if not worse, as last year. Add the damp marine air with the smoke that was left over from shooting illegal fireworks. So much for the illegal fireworks ban in LA. I'd have a problem with anything that he just said there. Man,
I'm looking for it.
Yeah, it's nice, I like it. You're right, yeah, we went outside and it was so smoky. It's the weird thing where like I kind of like the smell. It's one of those weird things about humanity or whatever, but yeah, it did get really smoky. Anyway, in YouTube, Melissa Lum, welcome to Tier 2 YouTube membership. We're gonna have a top 10 list. Obviously, we didn't shoot on Monday, and now we're doing an interview. So it's probably gonna happen tomorrow with Francesca, but it's coming up soon, and you now have access to that as well as months of past top 10 lists. So that's all out there waiting for you. Dragon Dancer sent in a super chat saying, "Hey, Dragon Squad, been out for a bit. Well, it's moving and missed you guys. So happy to be back and with John and Jayar too. Sweet. Have a great day, y'all." What a nice super chat. Just a nice thing there. Why is our community so nice?
Caps off with the y'all. If somebody says something nice and ends it with y'all, it gives it an extra 10%.
It does. But y'all can be ruined. I'm not gonna do the accent again, but there are some people. Anyway. Gabby says, "What is more American than smuggling explosives across state lines to celebrate the nation's birthday by blowing up a small part of it?" That's true. Now hold on a second. So he said that fireworks are illegal in LA. Is that true, Jayar?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I drive past places selling fireworks every day.
In LA, right? LA. There's a bunch of smaller cities within LA.
That's
there's
true.
Inglewood,
Okay, that's
there's
true.
El Segundo. Is El Segundo one of them? I saw fireworks sales in probably in Inglewood, but also saw fireworks sales in South Bay as well too. I think it was Redondo Beach. I saw fireworks up there too. So people find them, get them, go and bring them back home.
Telling you, they need to be $5,000. Anyway, if you haven't hit the like button, by the way, I see that there's an effort to get to 2,000. Like button, that'd be nice. Maybe you like it. Thank you. Okay, Chuck Audio says, "I just tuned in and panicked. I'm at work on Jayar Big News Wednesdays. What a delightful surprise. Anyway, how about a DJ Lunchbox playlist?" What do you want to listen to? What music I would pick for a playlist? I was listening to music at the gym. It's eclectic. I'll say that. Anyway.
I gotta find what this is off air. I'm not gonna put you on blast.
You don't want to. Okay, I will only say, and we can see if anybody guesses it. The Handmaid's Tale had a really cool sequence where they used a song. They like to do things where it's like dystopia, but with modern American music or whatever. That song has been stuck in my head. It wasn't in the most recent season. It was in the previous season. That song has been stuck in my head for like a year and a half. If you can guess what it is, you win an internet point from the Dragon Daddy. Anyway.
But it's actually not on your playlist. Just make sure people know that.
No, it is. Anyway, Hero of Light, the Keyblade Dragon says, "I missed the pre-show. Any acknowledgement of all the Sonic smut flooding Trump's lame social media platform?" Yes, we did talk about that. There's all this Sonic the Hedgehog pornography.
Oh my God.
No, it's not Ariana Grande. Although I do listen to a little bit of Ariana Grande. It's not I'm Too Sexy, by the way. Nobody's guessed it yet. Okay, let's see. Caitlin says, "Each time MTG speaks, don't use that acronym, but I love you. She pushes people to the opposition because she and so many others are disconnected. Any room on the opposition for one more?" Yeah, she might. I hope so. She certainly doesn't make the right seem intellectually appealing, I don't think. Dragon got it. Okay, I'll talk more in the next break. But anyway, we got more news. Okay, don't go anywhere. See you in a second. Oh God, we have fun in the breaks. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We have but a little bit of time remaining, and I wanna make sure that I don't lose this, so I'm stretching very awkwardly. Okay, so we've got more news coming at you in just a sec. Let's jump to that.
Let's do it.
Something happened just a couple of days ago. We can't not talk about it, and it kind of speaks for itself. So take a look at this video. So that right there was in the Gulf of Mexico. A pipeline burst and set the ocean on fire. And I like to think of myself as a moderately intelligent person. I don't understand how any of this works. And I will echo Edwin, who tweeted, "If the ocean's on fire, what does spraying it with water do?" And I honestly don't know. I'm sure it does something. I'm sure they know what they're doing, but I don't see why spraying water on it would help. Anyway, we've got details on this, but Jayar, what did you think when you first saw that?
It would seem like they would know what to do, right? Because they're the ones who are the professionals in this situation, right? But as you find out more and more, I remember I've always said this, like there's a point in every person's life when they realize that their parents don't know everything. We grew up trusting our parents. It is a general basis. I'm sure many people have had horrific parents and they knew when they were 3 that their parents were idiots. But I'm just saying in general, for people who had responsible parents, there's a point when you're like, 15, 16 years old, you go, wait a second, my parents don't know everything, they're just humans, right?
Yes.
And it's weird that as adults, we never really get to that point where we think, hey, just because this guy is the CEO of some oil company, or this guy is the president of the United States, or this guy is the senator from here, or this guy runs this huge multinational corporation, that they know what the hell they're doing. They don't. Many times they're doing things to fulfill their own needs in their own pockets. Everything outside of that, they haven't thought about, because why am I wasting my time making money on being concerned about other people? And we still have this trust. So when you see people spraying water on the middle of a fire in the middle of the damn ocean, we go, oh, well, they must know what they're doing. They're not me. I have no faith that they know what they're doing. They caused it, so why would they know what they're doing to fix it?
Yeah, so look, people in the audience who know a lot more about this are saying either it's chemicals, it's nitrogen, it's something, it's not just water, that's what they're saying. Or it's to lower the heat in the area or something, which seems perfectly reasonable. I don't know which or all of those that it is. That's obviously kind of a side point. This doesn't need to happen. Something like that, as cool as it looks, and yes, it looks like a kaiju is about to rise out of it, or Aang is about to rise, the Avatar is returned, like let our powers combine. It's cool in that way. Aside from that, none of this needs to happen. And I got news for you. Not all sources of energy generation are like this. One of the cool things about a windmill is that if it cracks, it doesn't blow a city away. Like if a solar panel breaks, like the raw, unrestrained force of the sun doesn't pour out of it. Like they're much safer generally. And we could have that. We could put money into that. We choose not to. Now look, in this case, this isn't even like a US thing. This is a Mexico state-owned oil company, Petróleos Mexicanos, also known as Pemex. But this is obviously an international thing. Internationally, we're still consuming oil. A lot of the oil that we consume doesn't even originate here. We buy it from other countries, so the other countries are gonna dig it up quite naturally. That pipeline, by the way, or that field, I should say, it's not just that pipeline, produces more than 700,000 barrels of oil per day. And we don't have to do that. We don't have to produce 700,000 barrels of oil a day, let alone the millions and millions that we do internationally. And we have all of these reminders that we've gone too far, that we could take a different path. It comes in the form of environmental disasters, some of which are devastating in their loss of life. Some like this are mostly just terrifying, but it's almost certainly devastating to other forms of life. Like nothing that's happening in the ocean there is gonna be good for any number of different species. But we could go in a different direction. It's just a question of, are people going to care? Are people going to get the message?
No, because again, this Michael Bay movie that we're watching is one of those things that it's just like, oh, it's there and these happen here and oh, they'll take care of it. And I do think there's probably gonna be a certain percentage of people that will be like, oh, this is a Mexican company. Oh, okay, that's at least that's detached from the United States. That's not us. It's in the Gulf of Mexico. That doesn't affect America, huh? And who cares if it doesn't affect America? Doesn't it affect the world, or do we not care about that? Are there these invisible walls that we have in between each country and each continent? Does that end the fact that this fire doesn't care about your boundary lines? It's affecting what's happening in our world. So yes, it's a natural thing of thinking, oh, we didn't do it, so everything is fine. We're affected by the world, we live in it. It's just, I don't know the detachment that you can have when you see something like this and go, well, yeah, I mean, it's not us, it's not our fault. Yeah. But what you can do is look at what we do and find out if we can prevent this from happening. We can stop the process for getting to this point where it is our fault.
Yeah,
because that would be devastating even further, because we know what kind of power and control and manipulation we have on the world. But those things don't have to come to fruition. It's just a matter of, oh, look at that, and oh my God, it wasn't our fault.
Yeah. By the way, so when something like that happens, when you see the ocean on fire, that obviously draws your eye. When there's a bad storm or a wildfire or something like that, that's devastating. But every once in a while, we do try to remind ourselves here that these extreme events are devastating, but they also sometimes have like an outsized influence on our amount of attention. And stuff that's just going on all the time that doesn't necessarily look cool or sexy, doesn't draw media attention, can be just as devastating. So we want to turn to something in that area right now. The long-term effects of climate change are going to be devastating in a lot of different ways, but we also try to remember that they're not going to be proportionately awful for everyone in the same way. Some people are going to and have been suffering worse. And in this case, the persistent overall heating of the earth is going to be worse for the working class, because the working class in all areas is going to be less protected against rising temperatures. You can see that right now with the heat dome in the Pacific Northwest and in Canada, where unhoused people are obviously being devastated. Those who can't afford air conditioning are suffering worse. But in general, just every day, the heat conditions are going to be worse for the working class. And I want to thank Mindy Isser of Common Dreams for doing a write-up about this and some of the ways that this is going to happen. And she starts off by acknowledging that like the 100 million computer workers are going to largely be able to work indoors. They're not going to be necessarily affected by severe weather or just regular weather that is much higher, severely hot weather. But the working class, a lot of it is going to be affected much worse. They're going to be working outdoors. Their companies aren't going to care about their welfare in the same way. People like farm workers, letter carriers, construction workers, sanitation workers, and other outdoor workers who are unable to escape to air conditioning are going to be on the front lines. Right now, it's already bad, but it is going to get worse. Between 1992 and 2017, at least 815 workers were killed and more than 70,000 injured just in the US from heat stress injuries. It's likely that the true number of workers hurt or killed is much higher because, of course, it might not be logged as a death of that sort, or it might not be reported at all. And many of those who we've cited working in those sorts of industries are undocumented or otherwise vulnerable and in precarious positions in terms of their work, and might be less disposed or able to actually report illnesses to OSHA. So this is going to be devastating. It already is for virtually everyone, but for the working class, they're going to bear the brunt of it. They're going to have the worst effects each year as this heat gets worse and worse for longer and longer periods of the year.
Again, John, I'm telling you, it's natural. I feel like, who knows? I didn't research this. It's like natural tendencies. People are gonna look, 1992 to 2017, only 815 people died. That's a 25-year span. We've only lost 815 of 25 years. You guys complain about these hundreds of thousands of people that have died of COVID here in just 1 year. I mean, that's bad, but 815 over 25 years, I think we can deal with that. It's telling you, bro, it's just the way we approach this type of stuff. We've only lost this many, and again, because of who they are, the class of workers that we assume they are, or the value of their life that we assume that they have is, it's the job they did. It's what they need to do. I mean, we talk about coal miners. I mean, anybody who have these dangerous health stripping jobs, we're like, well, that's their job. We see them as some of the best in our country. Oh well.
Yeah. Someone had a useful comment in YouTube. They said mobile AC tents should be standard at work sites where people work outside, which is probably true. That probably should happen. But like, shouldn't it be kind of a bad sign when we have to set up something that I can imagine them having on Mars? Like, you need to set up the special tent where you can go and cool down after the harsh outside environment. This is Earth. We're supposed to live here. This is supposed to be like, we're made for this. We've evolved to this, but now we're destroying it. And soon we'll have to act like we're Matt Damon, barely trying to grow potatoes to survive.
I was going with Arnold Schwarzenegger choking on Mars.
Oh, that's true too. That might happen. We still got oxygen for now. We'll see.
For now.
Anyway, very briefly, I want to jump into the story. So there has been this going on now for months, basically an epic situation involving Nikole Hannah-Jones, who is one of the academics that has borne, I would say individually, like the most of the brunt of the right-wing strike back against critical race theory, against any sort of acknowledgement of historic wrongs, systemic racism, all of that. She originally lost access to tenure for the university that she was going to be working at. That's the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Eventually, after so much pushback to the pushback, they decided to offer it to her. But that's not the direction she's gonna be going in, actually. Less than a week after trustees belatedly voted to grant tenure to her, she announced that she would instead be joining the faculty of Howard University. She'll be a tenured member of the faculty and serve as the newly created Knight Chair in Race and Journalism. Also, we'll be joined by Ta-Nehisi Coates, a fellow MacArthur Genius Grant recipient at the historically black Washington, D.C. based university. She's going to be founding a brand new Center for Journalism and Democracy, according to the university. So that's an interesting turn. I did not expect that after the public pressure got Chapel Hill to offer the tenure that anyone in that position historically would have gotten, that they didn't offer to her. Jayar, what do you think about that? About her decision to go and start this new thing at Howard instead?
Well, it's kind of twofold, as you said. First, the forced offer of tenure, which also already shows you the way that they would potentially treat her. If you already didn't respect the person that you were hiring to take on this position, how much would you respect them in their work once they're there? And we'll find out details of how much they actually respect her and her work, and a good reason why she made this decision as well. And to go to a university that would actually maybe take into account the things that you would do and implement that would actually better the education of the students that are in that program at your college. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Have someone there that's gonna implement something that will benefit your students that come in. If one university doesn't want to, why am I working at a place that doesn't want to take part in education?
Yeah. Exactly. And by the way, this is some context that I probably should have mentioned earlier. But she's the journalist for the New York Times, best known for creating the 1619 Project, which focuses on the place of slavery in American history and the systemic racism institutionalized in the US government in multiple states since then. That got a lot of people to think about these topics, but unfortunately, it seems to have produced about 10 times more passion on the right to ignore that these things ever happened, to continue to try to rewrite the history of slavery as something that wasn't that bad, that nobody really cared about. And that continued, by the way, sorry, what were you gonna say?
So to disprove the point for people who are looking to implement a curriculum that will teach things like critical race theory and how it's systemically racist in every aspect of our lives, one of those big aspects of our lives in our education system decided to go against her teaching it because they want to prove that there's not this institutional racism within every aspect of our lives by exhibiting institutional racism in this aspect of our lives. Good job.
Yeah, and like almost to demonstrate the need for this sort of education, I saw this morning talking about 4th of July. Oh my God, I am blanking on, former press secretary, why am I blanking on her name? The last one. Possibly the biggest liar.
Not the first one.
Kayleigh McEnany.
Yeah,
Kayleigh McEnany.
I was thinking of Huckabee, sorry.
Yeah, no, Kayleigh McEnany said the 4th of July is awesome. Virtually all of our founding fathers opposed slavery.
They all did.
Did they?
That's true.
Did they?
Oh yeah, totally.
Did they personally? Did they, in terms of what they wrote in the Constitution? Kind of seems like that's not true. Maybe you should learn a little bit. But no. Anyway, so this is interesting. Gonna be interesting to see where this goes, what that new center is able to produce. But it definitely is a heads up for universities bowing to right-wing pressure that belatedly reversing course isn't necessarily going to appease people.
You're not gonna have to think too much about where people stand. They're gonna tell you. That's my last thought.
That's true. Okay, everybody, that is unfortunately all the time we have for our listening audience. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. There's a lot more coming though for YouTube and Twitch, so stick around. More news coming up after this. Hello, YouTube, Members app, Twitch, how's it going? Welcome back. Got some more news coming up for you in just a sec, but before we launch into that, did want to let you know, you don't need me to tell you this. You know what's coming up after the show. It's indisputable. You literally can't dispute it. You're not allowed to. Dr. Rashad Ritchie is going to be coming up right after TDR with Adrian Lawrence as his co-host, as happens every Tuesday. Ben Q, a conservative, will be showing up on the show as well as Kenya Evelyn will be the guest. Should be a lot of fun. A whole 3-day weekend worth of Karens to pluck one out of. That should be a lot of fun. You're not gonna wanna miss that. Let's see. What's going on out there in the audience? Non-human humanist, how's it going, non-human? Says, my second vax shot is end of July. I was COVID positive. I am worried about my child, 4 years old. These variants, kids can't be vaxxed. Yes, so there's a certain age, obviously, where you can't. And that's why we always try to acknowledge there are some people who, for a variety of reasons, can't take the vaccine, or the vaccine wouldn't be effective inside of them. So we have to bear that in mind. That's one of the dangers of having a bunch of people willingly running around not vaccinated.
Yeah.
The Novel Shark says, okay, love how left-wing politicians live rent-free inside Margie Gangrene's head. What a waste of time and energy with all these tweets. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff about like why was Ilhan Omar on her mind there? I don't know.
I know why. Come on.
Oh no, I know her rather than others, but like randomly to just think. I didn't randomly think about Ilhan Omar yesterday. Like just I'm walking about my day. Oh yeah, Ilhan. I don't know. Seems weird. Yeah. But I get what you're saying. Let's see, John Maddox Hall says many of those Asian cars are manufactured in the USA with American workers. Many parts for US cars are manufactured overseas. That is 100% right. Yes, Virginia Thomas says, the Ice Dragon says, first of all, when you join the military, you sign your life away. If you don't get your shot, you are not combat ready, and if you're not ready, bye-bye. Yeah, if you refuse to take the vaccines they require, I'm assuming you will be taken out of the military. And I'm assuming that's how it's always been.
Talk about a shot that military gets. They get all kinds of shots at them, and we're like, oh, that's what they signed up for. Oh, bullet whizzed by their face. Oh yeah, they signed up for that.
Yeah, they also sometimes wear masks. Kyle says, Google says you're both wrong. Regular Tang has no caffeine, but they actually make an energy Tang. They should not make. This is the stupidest point ever. Do you think they've ever done some sort of promotional thing with Wu-Tang? You think? Oh, they must have, right?
They haven't. They should have. And number two, the energy version of Tang is called NOS, NOS energy drink. It's like NOS, not nitrous oxide. It's the same brand look on the can, and it tastes like energy drink version of Tang. I know this because I drink that stuff.
And probably did today. Okay, Gifram subscribed to tier 1 for 7 months on Twitch. Thank you, Gifram. Knit Fast Die Warm subscribed for 7. That's a great name. I love that. T- for 6 months. Willowmaker Dragon Freights has been gone for a few weeks because I moved, but listening to the podcast is not the same. I have missed the squad. Well, thank you for being back. Feel free to review the podcast though. That's always helpful. If you want to rate it and review it, that'd be great. I occasionally like to go. It's very nice. Just very nice people reviewing the podcast. Needles subscribed for 4 months. Thank you. Mad Crake for 7 says, hey ho, Dragon Squad and TJ Daddy Lunchbox Dragon. Y'all are the best. Greetings from Germany. Hello, Germany. Zivis X subscribed for the 3rd month. Says, thank you, Jayar and John, for all you do. Can I have the name Zivis X, the Sith Dragon? It's taken, sorry. No, I'm kidding. Yes, you can have it. And Brandy Lou, thank you for those 5 subs. Very nice of you. Oh, BC Trumpet gave 10. Thank you. And someone did, so in the last break, I asked you what song had been stuck in my head thanks to Handmaid's Tale. And one person did guess it initially, Dragon Morgan Muffle. It is Heaven is a Place on Earth, has been stuck in my head for more than a year now. Or maybe closer to 2 years, actually.
And sadly, when John is finishing up his last bench press set, he's like, ooh, heaven, is it that song?
No, but Jayar, you're joking, but that's my life. Yes, that is exactly. I mean, not the bench press necessarily, but yes, that is my life. Anyway, okay, with that, we got some more stories to get to. We'll talk more about heaven, whether it's a place on earth, where it can be found, coming up soon. But let's jump into this next story. Oh, Rudy, you poor sad sack. Rudy Giuliani has just prostrated himself, humiliated himself over and over and over. And what does he get for it? he doesn't even get paid for the labor he did. He doesn't get paid for the work he actually did. That's what we're finding out now from an excerpt that's been published in the Times of London from the upcoming landslide, the final days of the Trump presidency. Bearing in mind, as always, with a massive grain of salt, that this is a book by Michael Wolff. So just putting that out there. But apparently, Donald Trump's family has cut off Rudy Giuliani, and the former president has been irked that the lawyer asked to be paid for his work challenging Trump's loss in the 2020 election. In the final week of his presidency, isolated and twice impeached, Mr. Trump ordered aides not to pay Mr. Giuliani's fees. The excerpt said that Giuliani had gotten only the cold shoulder while seeking payment from Trump amid the prospect of expensive legal battles of his own. Trump has also taken to asking visitors to his Mar-a-Lago resort if they know any good lawyers to help him continue. Oh no, man. So first of all, they don't want to pay him. Oh, by the way, there's something coming up that's even sadder, so stick around for that. But they don't want to pay him. And the second is, he doesn't even want him as his free lawyer. Because this is sort of implying that Rudy's still his lawyer, that they're just not paying him. He doesn't even want Rudy for free anymore, Jayar.
Well, that's because the payment for Rudy being free is that he's got to ask for his money. That's just too much of a burden for Donald Trump.
That's annoying. Yeah, so Rudy, like, look, they lost all those court cases. I would argue that is not really Rudy's fault. Like, there was no merit to the case. Like, sure, he bungled it even worse with his press conferences and farting COVID onto people and everything. But like, he did work though. He was in the court. He flew around the country. I feel like he does at least deserve the pay. He had a law license at that point. Like, will no one speak up for Rudy Giuliani at this point? The dude has been so abused.
His best recourse now is Stewie Griffin. Where's my money? Give me my money, man. Where's my money? This is my money.
I think he needs. At some point, Trump is going to get out of the shower and Rudy's going to be standing there. But anyway, so yeah, Rudy's his embarrassment continues because, okay, so he can't get paid by Trump. And look, I'm like jokingly speaking up for him, but legitimately, like, one of the constants of Trump is that he never pays people who work for him. So Rudy, you don't get to be that shocked by the fact that he's not paying you. So what Rudy has done is what a lot of people have to do when they're abused by the American healthcare system and there's no health insurance. He is crowdfunding. However, not going so well. As of right now, the Rudy Giuliani Legal Defense Fund, which was started on June 26th, has 100 donors that have chipped in $9,540. And that is after saying the swamp is revolting by placing a bullseye on the backs of every Trump loyalist. That puts Rudy at the top of their list. Rudy's fate will determine if America is still a republic governed by we the people. And to that, the base seems to be saying, Rudy's fate's up to Rudy. 100 people. It's Rudy Giuliani. He was America's mayor. He was a presidential candidate. He's Trump's lawyer. He has a podcast and he appears on Fox News. All of those things together have generated 100 donors.
100 donors for $9,500. So this is the other part too. So, when Donald Trump's cult becomes all of his minions, they take on his image and they take on his energy, they take on his approach to life. So why would they want to pay this guy? Their Führer doesn't want to pay this guy. Why would they want to pay this guy? They follow their leader and their leader only based on anything else. Every loyalty to anyone else that has completely sacrificed their entire lives for him, they're thrown to the side and you forgot about them. They're done. We've used them for our purposes. Why would we give you money for your legal defense? Who are you? You're not the Führer. You're just, you're a useful idiot that we've used. I'm not sure when they're gonna figure this out. Maybe some lib would have told them back in 2015 that this guy doesn't pay his bills. They told you and they told fake news. You hate the president. Trump derangement syndrome. Look at you. Angry all the time. Who's looking for some money from a few hundred people? And by the way, my last thought on just the donor part. If you're one of those 100 people and all this come up is $9,500, you probably want your $27, $35 back that you tripped in. Probably more than that. It's only $9,500. Because if you feel good about donating to someone, you've given, say, $100. You're like, this $100 isn't gonna raise much money. But you find out that the person that you're donating to has raised now $250,000. You're like, okay, I contributed something that really got somewhere.
Yeah.
If you contribute something and it gets nowhere, you're like, damn, that's a waste of my $100.
Yeah, there's definitely a psychology that goes into it. I just noticed something very briefly. Can we bring up that graphic again? So the 100 donors is sort of sad. The $9,500 is sort of sad. You're not going to be able to see this because the graphic is very small. Do you know what his goal was?
Oh no.
It's $5 million. I don't think he's gonna make it. But what do you think? You know what? We've actually got a poll. So you can go to tyt.com/polls. And we wanna know, how many donors will Rudy Giuliani get by tomorrow morning? The first option is 100. We're assuming he won't lose any donors.
I was just
100. Will he get to 105? 150, could it happen? It seems unlikely, but or will this coverage in TDR get him all the way up to 250? There are some conservatives who watch this. Will he be able to do it? I don't think he's making it to $5 million, but we'll see. Maybe he needs to offer better perks or something. But finally, Jayar, to your point.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you were talking about like the Führer stuff, and I really do think someday he's going to throw someone aside and the base will not reject them. That hasn't happened yet, but someday, so stay tuned. So I'm assuming this is a quote from sports. King of the Gods put in a quote, "They don't love you like that, you thought you was Kobe." Is that a quote that you know from some sporting thing?
You said they don't. It's probably from a lyric that because these kids are playing all this new music these days, or maybe it's from an artist that I should know. I'm sorry, I've been.
That's true.
I've been dealing with fireworks.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah. So is this the equivalent of like getting ratioed? Is that what the kids say these days?
That is. If he had asked for 5,000 and got 10,000, then that doesn't look that bad. Dude asked for $5 million. Jeez.
And everyone else had the same sentiment that Donald Trump has had for the past couple of years. Who does this guy think he is? $5 million.
Oh man. Okay. Well, with that, we're coming off of a holiday, so let's launch into something a little bit weird as we go into this next story. So that was happening it was a Walmart, right? Of course it was a Walmart. So that was over the holiday weekend. It was tweeted out by someone. All I know about them is that in their profile, it had their Getter handle. So this is a person who's on Getter, to give you an idea. Okay, so Jayar, that's America, baby, right? Isn't that America? You stop your shopping, you put down your Pringles, and you salute America and you sing to it. I don't want to prejudge. I don't want to give too much away about what I think about this, but what are your thoughts?
I saw people singing national anthem a little bit over the weekend on their Instagrams or whatever. I don't know. I feel like we've been through this in the past several years about the full meaning, and that there's not just one verse of the national anthem that we sing. And if we sang the whole thing, people might stop singing it. And maybe they won't be stopping in the little Walmart to cheer, or sadly, they still might. In fact, they might get even more rigorous with it because let's push back on this woke media culture of America. These progressives are ruining a good, strong national anthem.
Yeah.
Again, the opposition to education on what things are and where they came from in our history, just specifically history of our country, there's a reason behind it. So that things like this can happen with a bunch of people who don't know what the reality of our history is and continue to sing the same things that were indicative of the horrific nature of our history by omitting the horrific parts and act like it's a beautiful, glorious song. You're so patriotic when you sing these devastating words.
Yeah, someone says, imagine if someone knelt during that, like next to the avocados. Okay, so there's a range of responses to this. So I saw this on Twitter. Jordan Ewell, a friend of the show, I think he might be in the chat right now. He was not having it, I will say. Look, life is difficult. There are people who are in that crowd who have legitimately been left behind by the abuses of corporate America and all that. Many of them have been brainwashed into believing that that's good or whatever, but they have actually been victimized by America. So if there is a thing that brings them joy, even if it's singing in a store or whatever, then that's fine. I'm not gonna take that away from them. I will say though, to piggyback on what Jayar was saying, like an informed love seems more worthwhile than just an unthinking love that was trained into you as a kid. To me, it seems like it. I just want to leave with a possible jumping off point for thought. Any conservative might be watching this and think, no, that's the best thing. That right there is the best thing. You can't have any negative thought about that. How would you feel if you saw that in literally any other country? Like if you saw virtually any other country of people in Costco Germany or Costco Madagascar, or Costco North Korea or whatever, all doing that. You sort of question and think it's a little bit weird. Yeah, I just think we should think about our own traditions and weird things in the same way.
We're arbitrarily better than everyone else. Facts, reality did not have to match up. We can sound and look like a North Korean dictatorship at times with people like this, or we could just say we're not and then move on.
Yeah,
it's like what we say goes, not what we do. And somehow we fooled enough of us to believe that. And as more and more people wake up to that, that's why now woke is a bad word. Waking up is a bad thing. Look how upside down we have to be. Our history is based in racism and slaveholding, but we can't talk about it or else we'll look bad. Not we have a history of slaveholding and racism that still lives to this day, and therefore we need to change it, and we're not as good as we act like. We just have to say, it's not a big deal, because what we say goes, not what we do.
Yeah, and again, like if it brought people joy or whatever, I might think it's a little bit weird. I might not take part in it, but that's fine. I'm not trying to yuck your yum or whatever. It also, the one last thought I have is there any other song that I could just start singing and other people would join in and feel obligated? What's the limit for that? Like, could you get like thong song going? Or like, is there any other song? Like if it was Christmas and I started like singing like, the Grinch song, would people do, or is it just this one song? I wonder, I wanna
know if, I mean, from my college days, if you get the thong song on, or if you get Back That Ass Up from Juvenile on, then you're gonna get a lot of people singing and rushing to the dance floor, especially the era that I was in, that'll definitely happen.
Someone suggested Magic Dance from Labyrinth. Yeah, I'd like to try this. Anyway, let's go into one more weird video. We're just like talking about 4th of July. It's a weird holiday. If anything is going to kill faux, shallow patriotism, I think it's going to be this video.
$5 million to fix this problem.
Okay, I have just something I want to say. Mark Zuckerberg is the coolest, hottest, most badass. Yeah, badass. He's the most badass, and we will never criticize him again. We want our show to continue to work. No, we were just kidding. Anyway, so that's him on a wakeboard with an American flag with what's the song that was playing there? It was "Take Me Home, Country Roads." He is a billionaire who has maybe individually done more damage to this country, our political discourse, our respect for fact than anyone other than, I don't know, maybe Murdoch. And he's got the flag. So if you're a conservative, this is how that works. He gets to just have the flag. You don't like him, right? He's bad, he's fake news. He hates Trump or whatever. But he just has the flag and he's super patriotic despite all of what he does to America. We can agree he's bad, right? So this is how easy it is. You should be as suspicious when you see a politician posing in front of an American flag as when you see a douchey cybernetic being on a wakeboard holding one. That's what I would ask of you on this 4th of July.
I want people to look up.
Final thought.
Yeah, if people look up the kind of board he's on and understand if you can afford that and how American that is.
What is it?
It's one of those like it's a you saw the post into the water. It's like a self-propelled surfboard in a way, but not a surfing style board. You just fly down the water on a self-propelled board, and rich people can afford these. I remember looking it up because I thought it was the coolest thing ever, which it's pretty cool.
It is.
And of course, you can't get it at your local Dick's for $89. Absolutely not.
That's true.
I forget the name of it, but it's the epitome of people that are able to afford something like this. While you throw American flag on it to make sure everyone else that can't, and also that doesn't have any opportunity to get to that point because of the way our system is put together, to look at it and go, "That's America," because it is. Yeah. Only people like him can do that.
That's true. Yeah, it's like he's doing that to represent America, and yeah, he nailed it. That is America, basically. That's wonderful. Anyway, so sorry for the tech problems that cut into us a little bit, but we do have a lot planned for this shorter week. Francesca Fiorentini is going to be joining us for Big News Wednesdays. We're going to see if it's even bigger than usual. We're going to find out together. Abelina Sabrina is going to be joining us on Thursday, and on Friday we have a very special guest for our garbage people. Special in that he has not been around for a bit, but supposedly Brett Ehrlich is going to be joining us once again, so that should be a lot of fun. Jayar Jackson, as always, thank you for joining us on this special Big News Tuesday.
Absolutely. The reason I'm not here tomorrow is because I'm going down to the South. Where in the South? Maybe I'll let you know. I'm going to Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge.
Fun.
We'll be there.
Wear your mask. Wear your mask, but have fun.
Yes.
And for all of you watching, we're gonna take a little break, but when the stream returns, it will be Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. But you know where you should go to watch that? Go to youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. You can subscribe. The show is awesome. They're having a ton of fun. Adrian Lawrence is gonna be joining him on the show today. So you're definitely gonna watch that, or gonna wanna watch that. But thank you. We're gonna go talk with Dave Leventhal. That video will be up on the channel very soon. So until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, I missed y'all. Did y'all miss me? Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey. We have a heck of a show. You don't want to miss the I Wish a Karen Would segment today. We have literally found a Karen who hates dogs and people. Also, my debate guest will be Ben Q. Ben Q is a columnist, and we're going to talk about taking a knee, Black Lives Matter, and how sports and politics intersect. Ben says it should not. I say it absolutely should. Should be a great debate. And breaking down news of the day, we have back Adrian Lawrence, author, attorney, and TYT contributor on the show. Let me start with my top story. You know how people say, well, if you're black and you get pulled over, you're doing nothing wrong. If the cops find out that you're doing nothing wrong, they would just let you go. There will be no issue. All you have to do is comply with their demands. And once they find out that you're not the guy, they let you go because they need to proceed to do their job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to Las Vegas, where literally a black male was pulled over, guns drawn. They had like a whole damn SWAT team behind him, and it was the wrong guy. But they knew it was the wrong guy. They started to communicate with each other. We have the wrong guy. But did that stop them from having their weapons drawn? No. Did that cause them to immediately apologize and go find the actual bad guy they were looking for? No. Did it cause them to change their demeanor and be nice to the individual who was an innocent civilian that got caught up in their wrong conclusion? No, they did none of that. They proceeded to arrest the guy, then check his vehicle, and I'm gonna tell you what that's about in a moment. So a TikTok appears to show Las Vegas police pulling over the wrong car, but still putting the driver in handcuffs. Two separate clips were posted in late June showing several police officers standing outside their cars with their sirens blaring, pointing their guns at another vehicle off screen. Alas, despite their error, they continue to instruct the driver to get out of the vehicle and walk slowly towards them. They tell him to settle down, to which he says, "You've got guns on me. What the F do you mean settle down? That's my house right there." They soon put handcuffs on this man, on him, while officers decided to check his van. Now remember, they know this is not the right guy they're looking for. Despite knowing it isn't the car, before seeming to ask him to apologize to them in return for them saying sorry for their error. "Just get me out of these cuffs and let me go about my day, please and thank you," he says before he's let go. I got that video. Here it is.
Take your seatbelt off and open the door. Hey, what? Hey, man. Don't go reaching for nothing here. Why are you pulling me over? Man, stay over there. Just get back. That's my house. Okay, back. Look.
The man is yelling, "This is my house," and he's literally pointing to a house that everyone can see. He has to be terrified. I know if I was in that situation, I would be terrified and horrified. You have guns drawn at you. They are pointed in your direction. You have all of these white men yelling at you, and you have done absolutely nothing illegal, nothing wrong, and nobody will tell you what's happening. Well, in all of that confusion, these cops started to say among themselves, "We got the wrong person. We got the wrong guy." But that did not stop them from proceeding to arrest the wrong guy, put him in handcuffs, and then deciding to just check his vehicle. Now, let me tell you why they did that. They did that because it would have justified their mistake if they found something. That's why they did that. They wanted to continue to act as if, hey, this is still a bad guy, and even though we made a mistake in this conclusion, he's a bad guy, so we're going to get him off the street. It was the same philosophy they used against Saddam Hussein, by the way. Oh, they're weapons of mass destruction. Whoa, no weapons of mass destruction, but he's still a bad guy, and we still have to do this thing to him. Here's what ended up happening.
Get me out of these. We want to talk about my name. Just take
They do apologize as they are taking the cuffs off of him. Damn your apology. You should not have arrested him in the first place. Damn your sentiment at this moment. You knew you had the wrong guy when your guns were aimed at him. Adrian, welcome to Indisputable. You are an attorney. I have to understand, how is it that every police officer knew by radio communication they had the wrong person and they were still able to put him in handcuffs, check his vehicle? How can they do that?
Well, the question is, how can they do that lawfully? What the police are going to say is that it wasn't an actual long-term arrest. It was merely a momentary detainment. Of course, you'd say, hey, well, they put him in handcuffs, so clearly there has to be a Fourth Amendment violation there somewhere. And I would arguably say that there is definitely something that's being communicated here that says we are going to deprive you of your civil rights. Once we realized that there was an error, we should have stopped and retreated. But instead, we decided to continue to denigrate you and make you feel lesser by now purporting to act as though we have probable cause to search your car. And I think a lot of people don't realize how scary, how upsetting, and it hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will and essentially treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. And this is something that Black people face no matter where they are. That kind of assumption of criminality, the fact that they feel it's okay to detain you even though you've done nothing wrong. And this is another example of that.
This unarmed Black male who did nothing illegal could be dead right now. He could be dead right now. If he would have been a little more argumentative, if he would have been more outraged than he already was. Hell, if he would have just turned around fast rather than walking backwards as they demanded, he may have been shot and killed. And this could have happened, Adrian, ironically, with the cops having knowledge that he is not the person they are looking for. Now, I have another question, a legal question. If they would have found something in his vehicle, let's say some marijuana, would that have been considered a good arrest, meaning lawful, or bad arrest, meaning unlawful?
It depends on the arguments that the police made, because generally there's a doctrine that's called fruit of a poisonous tree that kind of suggests that if you get some fruit and it happened to come from a poisonous tree, then you can't use it. So in that case, evidence that you obtain through illegal means, then you can't use it in court. And so that would be something that this gentleman's attorneys would argue. But of course, the cops might say something of, well, we would have discovered it anyways. It wouldn't have mattered because we had probable cause to go ahead and arrest him or to detain him and to hold him there. Or we had some kind of legitimate thought that there could be criminality going on afoot. And thus we had legal justification for searching. It always becomes what did the officers claim they knew and what arguments can an attorney make? But at the end of the day, this person, I would expect them to sue the department for the civil rights violation here.
You talked about the Fourth Amendment right being violated. That's your right to due process. And you can argue, and I'm sure you can make a very good argument that there was a deprivation of that. And the police officers were well aware that this individual should have never been detained. What does that mean in a civil proceeding? What could actually happen to that police department, or what could that benefit the individual who launches a lawsuit?
Sure, so the Fourth Amendment is your right against unreasonable searches and seizures. So they have to have probable cause for the government to take you or to take anything that belongs to you. And the Supreme Court has chipped away a little bit at that doctrine by saying that there are instances in which you're not gonna have a full seizure, as in you're not gonna necessarily have someone handcuffed and they can't leave without their free will, that this is merely a momentary detainment for the officer's safety. And so these lesser degrees of detainment, they still invoke the Fourth Amendment and at least the doctrine that has come from that. And so that is the important part to focus on when it comes to what would be your Fifth Amendment due process rights. But when it comes to how it would work here in this situation, if this individual were to file a civil suit, what they would be suing on is a violation of their civil rights, that they do have those protections to not be in a situation where you're just walking the streets and the police maybe target you because of your race or because of your gender or because of some kind of protectable quality that you happen to hold. And it seems here that this man is definitely Black, and that the officers, regardless of their race or color, because as we know, white supremacy is what reigns in our society, that they are essentially infringing on his civil rights.
Yeah, and thank you for correcting me on transposing those constitutional rights. That's why you're the expert, Adrian, and you're on the show to break it down. What possible reason would they have to go and search the car? I get it. I get the argument on the where we put them in handcuffs and search them for our own protection. But what does the car, the vehicle, have to do with it once they were aware that there's no actual criminality happening here?
Oh, well, once they're aware, they really don't have any justifiable cause to search the vehicle. But generally, it's a thought that because your car, it is in interstate commerce, it's moving, it's not like your home that's supposed to be your kingdom, that you have less of a right to, protect it in terms of not having it searched. But generally, when it comes to cars being searched, the thought initially is at least it's some kind of thought that there must be criminality going on in some form or fashion. And the thing is here, once they realized they had no probable cause whatsoever, that they had the wrong guy, that they also have no indicia of thinking that there is any kind of criminal behavior going on, they have no cause to search the car other than really kind of maybe racism a bit. So I'm sure the officers will claim, hey, we're just doing a safety sweep or whatnot. And it'll be a question for essentially people with legal minds to have to make their arguments.
Yeah, I hope this brother sues the hell out of them. So we will continue to watch the story and bring people updates as it develops. Let me switch gears for a moment. This really brought a lot of joy to me. The Patriot Front group, AKA Patriot Front Cowards, decided to put on white mask. Sounds familiar. And they had the great idea. Now they're out of Texas. They had the great idea to travel all the way to Philadelphia to stage some kind of mob, flash mob, white supremacy style protest. This happened on the eve of July 4th, and it happened, it was late at night. And I think part of what they wanted to do was to be there right when it hit 12 midnight so they could claim that that's where they were located when the 4th of July hit. This was about 200 members of this white supremacist group named Patriot Front. They marched outside of Philadelphia City Hall Saturday night, chanting, and I quote, "Reclaim America." And they also chanted, "The election was stolen." General terms now for bigots and white supremacists. Now, here's what happened when the Philadelphia Welcoming Committee saw what was going down.
Don't be bitches. Don't be bitches. Show your face.
Too scared to take the mask off. Too scared.
Shame. Shame on you.
Too scared to
Oh,
bitch. Too scared to take the mask.
you call my mama a bitch.
Get out of here.
Oh my God, tear gas, guys, get. Huh? There's tear gas.
So they made an escape with like a gas smoke bomb or something, like their Darkwing Duck, right? So they got up out of there as soon as they got up in there because the Philadelphia Welcoming Committee wasn't having it. Now, according to reports, there were multiple scuffles. We do not have any report from the police department that there was any arrest made. But here's a quote from Philadelphia police officer Michael Crum. Michael Crum says they started engaging with citizens of Philadelphia who were none too happy about what they were saying. These males felt threatened, and at one point, somebody in their crowd threw a type of smoke bomb to cover their retreat, and they literally ran away from the people of Philadelphia. Can I just go back? Can we just play the retreat? Let's go back to the retreat when they were running away.
Yeah, you real. Yeah, you real. You real tough. You real tough. You stupid idiot.
Yo,
God, they trying to escape. He's their bitches.
Look at them loading into their little white supremacist vehicle. They traveled all the way from Texas to damn to get their ass kicked. And while they are running away, you can hear people continuing to taunt them and say things that I think are quite appropriate for what they attempted to do. But ladies and gentlemen, did you notice that they had toy shields? I promise you they ordered those shields from Walmart. That's not making America great again, because I promise it was also made in China. All right, Adrian.
Oh, you know what? And I also saw that they had the little khakis on and the navy polos. I think they ordered their entire. Yeah, no, that's exactly the whole nonsense brigade. They got as one package of fits at Walmart. And it's like they also happen to get their intellect off of the floor at Walmart, just fooled. And to watch them running, it's like, how are you gonna show up in a major city that is also pretty diverse? And you're gonna show up with this white supremacy nonsense? People don't, like the new white supremacy is more low key. It's they're not a good fit for the culture, or I tried. They're not out here wearing the white hoods and the masks and thinking they can get away with it. So I think these young men missed the memo and they thought that they'd go real hard in a place that they're not ready for the okie doke.
I just wonder who's in charge of ordering their gear. Like, who's that tough guy? Who's the person sitting in front of the computer saying to the rest of the white supremacist mob, hey guys, this is gonna be the outfit for today. We're gonna make sure we have khakis with crease. We're gonna put these white coverings over our face, blue shirts, and then we're gonna go to Penske and we're gonna rent from Penske. So Penske Truck Rental, they had a statement and they put this statement out. And it says, Penske is not affiliated with this group and does not condone it in any way. Use of our vehicles for this purpose is unauthorized. Transporting people in the cargo area is also prohibited. We will take action with the renters of the vehicles involved. Penske is like, keep my name out of this.
Exactly, you know good and well, Penske's like, that's not the kind of advertisement we want. Same thing with those tiki torches. Gotta feel bad to some extent for them, but they won't be going out saying that they're not going to be renting vehicles anymore to middle-aged white men. So I really don't know what's gonna change.
Yeah, and I really hope Penske makes a more definitive response to this. Obviously, they are talking in a silo right now, relating to the situation. But I want Penske to talk about the general sentiment, and talk against white supremacy in very specific terms, because that's what it is. And we've come to a place, Adrian, where many people are afraid to call a thing a thing.
Correct.
And we need more leaders, especially in corporate America, who are willing to call it exactly what it is. These were white supremacists, members of a white supremacist organization who committed acts of criminality. There were scuffles. So you have your simple battery assault. You literally had trespassing happening in Philadelphia. They were unwanted guests, obviously, but there were no arrests made. There were no arrests made whatsoever, according to the reports that we've been able to obtain. And that lies the frustration that many of us feel. I promise you this, Adrian, if you would have put 200 Crips in one of these cargo buses and you traveled, I don't know, let's say to Milwaukee, and they did this in front of any Capitol in Milwaukee, somebody would have been arrested.
Absolutely, a few people would have been shot and possibly murdered. It's this thing that always gets me, historically speaking, with wearing the hoods, creating that figment of your imagination. So you can say these things like racism are just a figment of your imagination. They're just a ghost, they don't actually exist. And it just reminds me of the fact that that is how racism continues to breed, to move forward in our society, because people are afraid to acknowledge it, to say the word, and it keeps things as ghosts and people saying, oh, it's just a figment of your imagination. And we need to call these things out, to say white supremacy, to say these individuals are white supremacists. Call it what it is.
Call it what it is, very well said. We have more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, easy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me into Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms are both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. You don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Tank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
People who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back, Indisputable. We got a lot of comments. Let me read some of these viewer engagements. And remember to follow us on social media, Indisputable TYT, hashtag Indisputable TYT on Twitter, so we can get your comments in. Also, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. Because of you, we're at 120,000 subscribers, all right, because of you. Okay, let's get to it. TYT member Diana says, we did miss you, Dr. Double R. I don't think I can put up with a Karen who hates people and dogs. Well, you will today. Thank you so much for saying that. LMG15. I bought Adrian's book a few weeks ago and I love it. Everyone needs to read it. Beautiful, what a plug. And we'll make sure she announces once again the title of that book and how to get it. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, says, LOL, they know that Philly don't play. Twitch, huge raid, thanks Mike from PA, Central Committee. Thank you, Mike. That's huge. 1,146 viewers, then a 733. BC Trumpet gifted 5 tier 1 subs. McGauntlet gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you all so much for that love. All right, thank you. Vegas Cop, let's talk about it. Fat guy named Tiny. If not for the camera, how much you want to bet this would have become, I thought I saw a gun, murder? YouTube super chat. Bradley says, deep cuts with Dr. Richie, dark winged duck.
Yes.
Yeah. Scott John says, please keep dropping these truth bombs, and we shall, thank you. Tony D, TDR Dragon Family says, hello, Dr. Richie, and I say hello back to you. Thank you so much. Undecided says, probably not a good idea for white supremacists to hold a rally in a city where black people are the majority, just a thought. They tried it though, didn't they? Yeah. Lavender, thank you so much for that, Lavender. John Mad Dog Hall, thank you. Forbzilla, thank you so much for that. Sister Soul says, but if that was Black Lives Matter, the National Guards would have already been there. Yep, they would have met them there, actually. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free, back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
You know what we do. We highlight Karens across this country because Karens are dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet a Karen who has gone unchecked and unrestricted. She has roamed the countryside so long that her hate has now permeated to domestic animals. Yes, a Karen that hates dogs. Now, she probably hates this dog because she hates Asian people, and because the dog belongs to an Asian couple, she hates the dog as well. So meet this Karen who created an argument because the pet of this Asian couple did not have a leash. Well, she seemed to be, I guess, concerned at first, but literally this Karen tried to then kill their dog. Here it is.
Have you never heard of a leash in the city? Really? Really? Okay, we'll wait for the police to clear it up.
Yeah, go call them. Karen, please, Karen, call them. Karen, get your phone now and call the police.
I'm just waiting for him to come by.
And which country should I go back to, Karen? Huh? Say it. Now you cat got your tongue?
Can I get my tongue?
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Yeah.
Edit it out. Go ahead, edit.
Edit what out?
Come on, puppy.
What about no?
Come on.
You know, that's incredible. I'm just passing by, and you're actually trying to instigate a dog to go into the middle of a highway? What kind of problem do you have, lady?
Like, seriously, put it out there. Put it out there that you can walk around without your dog on a leash.
You know what? Put it out there that you can insult someone of Asian descent, and then also try and instigate a dog to go in the middle of the street because you're on principle for whatever reason.
They don't want to go down and find the police at the station. It's right there.
They're wasting tax dollars and police time. I mean,
they don't put a leash in your country.
Oh yeah, which country is that? Bola, come here. Bola, come, Bola. Bola. Come here.
Great. You're lovely. Come on, puppy. Come.
Karen, what happened, Karen? Karen, over here.
We're over here.
Over here, Karen.
Yeah.
Over here. You just did.
Have them come over.
Have them come over here. Have them come over here, Karen. I'm right here. Have them come over here. Have them come over here. You're harassing them now.
You are going to make the police get out of the car.
You are.
Put it on all over the web, baby. Put it all over the web. Such wonderful people.
Karen, white entitlement was 2020.
Wonderful people.
All right.
Yep.
Go, go, go. Go, baby, go.
Our campaign against Karens is obviously working because that NYPD officer was well aware this was a Karen situation. He did not need to get out of the car. He did not need to take a police report. He did not need to figure out what was going on. He knew right away, this is a Karen and I need to sit my behind right here in this police cruiser and do absolutely nothing. The person behind the camera was aware this was a Karen situation as well immediately and started calling her Karen. But think about the irony and hypocrisy that is involved here. She disguises herself as a concerned New York City resident, as a person concerned about this small pet, and then she tries to kill said pet. Adrian, what crimes were committed here, if any?
Well, if anything, that new law that's passed in New York for these Amy Cooper Karens out there, that definitely seemed to be violated to a certain extent, as this woman seemed to be very happy to contact the police to sick them on this Asian couple after she's the one who instigated the insanity. And it just it's so old, the whole I'm just a concerned citizen, really? Or are you just trying to regulate other people as opposed to minding your own business? And clearly that was her agenda here. And it was just, it's the anti-Asian sentiment, it's really flowing through here, whether or not she's completely and totally agreed it's about it. It's clear.
But think about how deep the hate has to be for you to want to actually kill an animal. You want to kill this domestic pet because this domestic pet is connected to the people that you are racist against. So now you want to actually make sure you lead them to death. If the pet would have been hit by a car because of her very intentional actions, could she have been charged with something criminally?
Oh, without question, absolutely. She essentially lured the dog into the street. That has to involve some kind of animal cruelty. And if nothing, also the couple would have a claim against her because it is an animal, but it is their property as well. So it's destruction of property. And and the sad part is that people who claim to be concerned citizens or claim to be animal lovers, they're the first ones willing to sacrifice it in the name of racism.
Yeah, this was one of those extreme situations that obviously this Karen did not care about the animal, but it was the pretext. And I think this is important to highlight. Typically, Karens of the world will provide a pretext, and the pretext is false. But it is a pretext to create engagement, adversarial engagement. In this case, the pretext was your animal does not have a leash, okay? That is the pretext. Now, because of this pretext, I must now regulate your behavior. I must put you in your place. And when you do not go in your place as I'm trying to put you, then I'm going to use law enforcement in order to control you. It's like slave patrol. That's how they want cops to be used. And we've seen this routine over and over again. Adrian, is it ever going to get old for these Karens?
No, not at all, because they've essentially been born and bred with this mentality, this privilege of the thought that the police are against people of color. And so that's an extension of me. I can call the police and it doesn't matter if I'm telling the truth or not. I can just make something up and I'll tell them that that person of color or that person of a marginalized class or group did something to me, and thus they will defend me. And so there are a lot of white people who have this built already into their psyche and they will weaponize it whenever getting the chance. But the reality is that won't go away until white supremacy goes away. And I don't know when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, you make a great point, Adrian, because literally this happens because of the atmosphere she has been born into, because of her 3 E's, experiences, exposures, and environments, and a belief system that says I can do this because this is how I get protected or can be protected if I call the police. Now, what has to happen? You can't just talk about Karens in a silo because they're part of a systemic structure. They're part of a systemic expression. If you did not have law enforcement typically working hand in glove with the Karens of the world, you would not have these Karens of the world feeling so aggressive and emboldened to do what they do. But you got an awakening happening of sorts, to where this is becoming more and more highlighted in our culture as a big no-no. And law enforcement should not be in the business of protecting these individuals who would like to weaponize their whiteness against others. Let me shift gears. This is a really, really compelling story that I'm about to get into. There's a man, Mount Laurel guy. He's been arrested following a viral rant. Now, you will see in this video, he's Mr. Tough Guy. I mean, he walks up to a black family's apartment or condo. He's all up in their face. I mean, he's just really, really a tough guy. Let him tell it. He has a racist rant. He calls his neighbors the N-word multiple times. This is in a quiet South Jersey neighborhood. And it shows this really, really not quiet white guy who decides to just act like a thug against his neighbors. You will notice that the police who responded, the police officer, was aware of who this guy was very friendly to him, even though the white male was very hostile. Here's part of that video.
To the front in Cherry Hill, the daughter got smashed. Exactly. Is that what you want? No. And you want to know where I was when all this happened? I don't care. At work, monkey. I don't care where you were. At morgue. Just like I told the Mount Laurel police, get these monkeys out of here, and you can't do it. That's me talking. 3602 Gramercy Way, that's where I live. Come see me. Hey guys, how you doing? Hey White, why are you back over here? Well, somebody called me. Someone called you, it's private property. You have no jurisdiction here whatsoever. I do when somebody calls me. Hold on. I need back up. You know what? Hold on. Go ahead. No. I'm gonna let you do your thing. Go talk to these. Go ahead. Stop. You go talk to the. Let them know what I'm all about and what their rights they have. All right. You wanna go back to your house? I'll come back to you. No, I'll stay right here. It's common property. Okay. Have a nice night. I'm gonna let you guys get an education right now. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'll do my job. Right? No problem. I'm not going away until your husband stops finding me and threatening me while I'm at fucking work. Cagney, cut it out, man. Oh wait, talk to them. Arrest me. I'm not arresting you right now. Relax. You. Just cut it out, dude. That's what you see, Brandon. 3602 Gramercy Way. Come see me, you. Please come to see you.
I mean, isn't he interfering with the investigation? Is this not maybe obstruction of justice? Interfering with the law enforcement officer? Do they not need to put him in handcuffs until they figure out what's going on? Doesn't he need to be detained momentarily? Does he not need to be separated from the incident since he is the obvious aggressor? None of that happened to him. What did he get? He had, hey, have a good day. I'm gonna go do my job over here. That's what the cop told him. The cop was respectful. The cop was courteous. And this cop decided to not engage this individual, racist, aggressive individual who just committed a battery, just committed assault, but not even engage him as a criminal whatsoever. That's what just happened here. Now, he gave out his address. You heard the guy give out his address. I didn't give out his address. He gave out his own address. Well, some people decided to follow up. Here it is.
No, I don't know. You didn't have kids. I think you have a girlfriend. He's just
either way, listen. I'll do it myself. He can get passed over the crowd.
He gave out his address. He told people where to meet him at, and they decided to take him up on the offer. So they went to his address. About 2 days after being outside of the house, the man identified as Edward Cagney Matthews. Edward Cagney Matthews was finally arrested on Monday. Here's some of that. It took all of that to get one white male arrested for physically assaulting a black family, for trespassing on a black family's property, and for generally being antithetical to a proper investigation of a police officer who responded to the scene. It took all of that to get an arrest. Now, this guy claims that he simply, and I quote, lost his temper that day. However, we have some video footage from a few years ago of a prior incident, and here's some of that video footage.
That's why nothing's happening. I sell drugs. That's what I do. That's what I've always done around here. I stopped, went to prison 3 times. Now I have all the friends with the cops. If you guys want to keep doing it this route, we're going to go the legal route. You're not going to get any help from the cops because they're my people. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's why you're not getting anything. And I know that you've said that. The cops came down and told me, they said, what do you want us to do? So you can figure that out. We're not trying to cause you a problem. You're not trying to cause us a problem, right?
I've never been trying to cause you a problem.
Right. So there's no reason for the cops to come back around. We should be perfectly cordial, be able to have these conversations and be able to live around here with no problem.
Yeah, but not what you're talking about, oh, the cops aren't going to help you, or calling my brother. I don't bother you. I don't do anything.
Calling your brother.
Yeah, you did do that.
No, I said, now I'm going to call the cops like That's what I said. I didn't call your brother I said, now here I go looking like a calling the cops. This is exactly what I said.
Well, we all heard it.
We all heard you?
We all heard it, yeah. Everybody outside. I couldn't believe it because I wasn't even in the argument.
Right, and you weren't even there either.
Yeah,
and
I came outside up top.
Keep doing what you're doing, and then we'll turn it around another way. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, so let me get this right. He's a former drug dealer, but now the cops work for him, according to his narrative. He obviously is very comfortable utilizing the N-word, and he was trying to make sure that obviously this female did not call the police, I assume, on him again. This is just wow. Adrian, why do you think it took so long for the police to actually do something after the video evidence was already out there?
Oh, well, as to the video you had just played, I don't know if that's alleged to be that man or if that is that man. But what I can tell you is that I have read accounts from the neighbors in that area saying this man harasses them regularly, uses racial epithets, has kicked in doors. And so he's pretty much operating as though there are no limits or restrictions on him whatsoever. Kind of this thought that he is working in conjunction with the police. And that kind of seems to be maybe possibly the case. If not his whiteness, it holds a whole lot of power there, because as we saw in the first clip, police were not going to in any way regulate him. White men get to have bad days where they're threatening other people and posing a threat, but anyone else in this world, my God, they get stopped the moment they shed a tear or in any way even look as though they're angry. And this becomes the issue as we saw on January 6th, when the dangerousness of white people is not seen as being just that dangerous. We have problems like this. We don't know what that man would have done to that family if the police still didn't show up. Instead, they had to have at least 100+ people go down there and march and chant for hours in order for the police to actually take action. That's not okay. It's a threat and danger to us all.
It is so extreme, but I'm almost believing the guy because of how the cop responded to him when the initial call was made, because of his previous recorded conversation where he said, listen, the cops know me, the cops work for me. He seemed as if he was a cop when that police officer responded to that scene. And Adrian, you know that police officer responded back to him as if he was a fellow police officer. What am I missing here? There's something else going on here.
It's a bootleg, lower melanin count version of Training Day, because this is something, it's a problem, when you do have that incestuous corruption kind of thing, it does make you start to side eye of, is this person actually in bed with law enforcement? And like you had pointed out, we didn't see law enforcement do all that much unless it was to give him a police escort away from his home. And hopefully there will actually be really significant charges against this man, and maybe even a restraining order to keep them out of that neighborhood, because he is a threat to others.
Yeah, and we're going to see also how the private company responds. There are rules for your behavior in communities like that. And we will see how this committee responds, because as you said, I've read the same updates. Members of this community, they have been complaining about this one man for years. And now, because he continued to play Russian roulette with his reputation, he has finally gone viral. Now that he's viral, all of this background starts to come out. But this background was well noted and well established before this one incident. So by the time it came to us, you had a whole history of this individual terrorizing threatening and trying to control members of that community. Yeah, quite insane. All right, here's what we're gonna do. I got something on the other side that is really, it's a tearjerker if you have a heart. It'll really make you pause and consider our criminal justice system in the United States of America. And I wanna highlight this because it's important. A witness recalls prosecutors threatening them, or witnesses recall prosecutors threatening them and their family to get a wrongful conviction of a Philadelphia man. This is a black man. He's free after 34 years. Let that sink in. 34 years. He was released from a correctional facility in Pennsylvania on June 24th after spending 34 years behind bars, after authorities found that investigators in the case concealed evidence, including some that pointed toward another suspect. His name is Curtis Crossland. Say his name, Curtis Crossland. He's still here. 60-year-old father of 5 and the grandfather was sentenced to life in prison after he was convicted in 1984 for killing a man he did not kill. He was accused of killing a Korean store owner in South Philadelphia. A review by the Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner's Conviction Integrity Unit found the investigators had illegally concealed information about a witness and information that suggested someone else committed the crime. Let me go down to this Atlanta Black Star report. The other witness, Dolores Tilghman, had given false testimony in another murder case, according to prosecutors. She also said she felt coerced into giving investigators information and claimed detectives showed up at her home and woke her up, threatening to arrest her if she did not testify. I want to remind you, not just testify, but testify falsely. Over the years, evidence mounted that Crossland was not the perpetrator in the store owner's death. 3 eyewitnesses to the murder said Crossland wasn't the killer, and a 4th witness identified someone else as the murderer. After he filed, this man has been fighting for his life. He filed 9 post-conviction relief petitions in state court and 4 federal habeas petitions. Crossland, who represented himself after attorneys mishandled his case, was cleared by evidence the Philadelphia police had all along, some of which was sealed with grand jury investigations. The reason why I want to bring that story to your attention, let's put this brother picture back up here. The reason why I wanted to highlight this story is because that is the face of our corrupt criminal justice system in the United States of America. That is the victim of our corruption in this country. One person did not do this to him. 2 people did not do this to him. Groups of individuals, from the police department to the DA's office to a grand jury to a judge, all of them did this to that one man. That one man. And you think this happened independent of a system approach? No, this is part of the system. This is an expression of the system. This man gave 34 years of his life because of some lying cowards who will never be arrested for the illegal things that they did to him. Adrian, I'll let you have the final word on that.
You know what, the thing that really strikes me is that this is not an anomaly. This is one of the features of the system. And there was a report that was put together by the University of Michigan, wrongful convictions and race in the United States. And it found that innocent black people are 12 times more likely than innocent white people to be convicted of a crime that they didn't commit. This, again, is a feature of the system. The system is not focused on removing bad people from the street. It's about essentially housing and incarcerating black people. Yeah. This is why we need to dismantle this system. We need to build and create a system that is not hinging on race or on subjugation, oppression, capitalism. all of these things, because as a result, we have instances like this, 34 years of your life robbed and stolen from you. Nothing can replace that.
Not a thing, not a thing. No amount of money, no apology, no proclamation from Congress, nothing will remedy what they did to him. Thank you so much, sister. Give out how people can follow you, the name of your book again, because obviously people are enjoying it. I have got to get me a copy. I hope you sign it for me.
Yes,
using my personal privilege here.
Yeah, no, I'd be more than happy to. My book is called Staying in the Game, the playbook for beating workplace sexual harassment. And it's definitely not, it's not what you think it is. It's a fun book for sure, but it teaches you essentially how to maintain leverage and a leg up. And if you're a man, I highly recommend reading it, in part because you might find there's some things that you do, but also there's a good chance, it's a very, very high chance that you will be subjected to workplace sexual harassment, and you do not want to be out of a job because you didn't know how to navigate it. But yes, you can pick up my book anywhere books are for sale. I think it's on Amazon right now for maybe $14 on sale. But Staying in the Game, the playbook for beating workplace sexual harassment. We just took 2 international book awards in the business category. So that is awesome. You can also find me on Twitter @AdrianLaw and on Instagram @AdrianLawrence.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
All right, we got more Indisputable. Stick and stay.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it.
We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of it, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, News and Information Channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Vance. I told you we were coming.
I mean, you talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock.
And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country.
November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
back to back that I like.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
Welcome back to Indisputable. We got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read some of them. Thank you all for chiming in all the time. Indisputable TYT on social media, hashtag Indisputable TYT, and join the YouTube channel, subscribe, Indisputable TYT. All right, let's get it. TYT member Cray Souffle says, thank God for phone cams. These cuckoo Karen segments are real-time examples of just how sorry and sad aspects of our society has become. Yep. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon says, just think of the millions of times POC went through similar situations, being assaulted by Karens and Kens, people of color, POC, were stopped by cops for no reason, were assaulted by cops, were murdered by cops before cams. And given the videos coming out from a year, 2 years ago, how many are hidden or were deleted by the cops? Super chat, YouTube, Brock Diamond says, you're doing amazing work for the culture. New work in Jay's showing support, and Jersey not here for the racist antics no more on Big Purr. Thank you so much for that. Nicole Smith, thank you for saying the name. Curtis Crossland, thank you. Diallo, I see he called his cop friends to protect him. Yeah. Sister Soul, he never should have been at those people's door. Yeah. Roger Harris, they stole 34 years of this man's life. That's correct. They did, very sad. Twitch, one Casperly one. It was a very hot day and the protesters just wanted to cool the cops. It's their civic duty. Gog one Boogie, they need to pay him for every day of false imprisonment. Well, we'll see what happens. Expect a civil suit to be filed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a remarkable young lady. She has joined me on Indisputable before. Kenya Evelyn, editor for Insider's Voice of Color, a platform amplifying underrepresented perspectives in the news. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I want us to really talk about the importance of diversity in media. There was a time, obviously, in the United States of America, if a white man wasn't saying it, it didn't happen because that's where you got all of your news from, 100%. No exception. And then there started to be some diversity, but even that diversity still had a lot of control elements connected to it, from sponsorships and some other norms that were just celebrated in America at that time. Now you're having a lot of independence in media. This program is one of them. TYT is a network of independent thinking individuals. Why is it important to have this kind of diversity in our storytelling?
Well, because essentially the communities that are most vulnerable to the narrative of our storytelling are those that look like you and I, those that are communities that have been centered in the part of our discourse in the last year especially. And so naturally, with the media being one of the most powerful institutions, and if not the more powerful civilian institution in our country, we recognize that there is a special need to hold this institution accountable to the communities that are vulnerable to those narratives, vulnerable to the perceptions and the facts that we convey to audiences every night, potentially one that has the ability to shape the conversations and shape policies, shape legislation, shape our conversations that are happening in our communities across the country, and especially as that relates to the ways that communities of color and more marginalized communities, or people of color, are targeted from that news and from that institution. So the same way that we saw people raising up and shouting out and making their voices heard in the streets last year, as in response to the murder of George Floyd last May, we also saw that there was accountability held within the corporate world that included financial institutions. We saw Hollywood, but media isn't unique to that, and that's where we saw even more recognition of the necessity in amplifying the voices of those with the lived experience to convey community, to report from communities. That isn't something to be shunned, and that isn't necessarily something that we should be prohibiting journalists of color from being able to report and authentically report their communities, and adapt that agency, give that agency back to the communities who are saying this is what is represented to us. This is what is happening to us. This is how the policies that people are perpetuating online or perpetuating in our news impact us, and we want to say so in how that is represented, including in how it's communicated within our media institutions.
Very well said. The great catalyst and great protector of true democracy is a strong free press. Not just a free press, not an optical illusion of a free press, but an actual strong free press. Talk about how those dynamics have to work hand in glove in order for you to have a true democracy.
I mean, essentially what we're recognizing is that media has the opportunity and has a commitment and an obligation to hold institutions that are impacting not just policy but people, and that sometimes we also oftentimes pay more attention to the politics and the policy around policies and ignore the impact that has on people. And so as we saw these conversations happening, as we saw both politicians, as we saw institutions, as we saw the corporate world being held accountable to that commitment, to that obligation that we have to hold ourselves and hold institutions, or hold truth to power, as cliche as that phrase may become over time. And as we see, it can be co-opted by even platforms that have ulterior motives or have agendas. We see that obligation was reinforced as communities amplified their voices in the streets, and it amplified that within the corporate world and within newsrooms, asking, who within your masthead is representative of the communities that you are now reporting on? How you report on, how you engage with, how you represent, and how you reflect those communities representative of the people within them. And so we're not immune to that accountability. And so that's what we're seeing happening all across the country and even today.
In real time, you see right now a strategic design to literally cause the messenger to be not believed so that you don't believe the message. One example of that is the terminology fake news. Well, fake news says you no longer need to actually analyze or be critical thinkers. You don't need to research it. As long as they tell you it's fake news, the news can actually be very true. But because they have made a villain out of the messenger, in this case, the media, and they have told you that everyone in the media is not operating in good faith, and they are simply evil practitioners of distributing information, then you no longer connect to the information. I mean, it's really an intentional effort to stop truth from permeating the hearts and minds of a select group of people. What are your thoughts about how problematic that can become? We already see what it's doing now, but do you think it gets worse?
I mean, we've seen throughout history, and I think a telltale sign is, or telltale adage that we tell people within our communities is that if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. And so we've seen throughout institutions, we've seen throughout countries, we've seen throughout governments, we've seen the impact of when you attack the institution of media, the one that is supposed to be a neutral element of holding everyone accountable to what we claim to be and what we aspire to be. When you attack that element, you bring up the opportunity for doubt. You say you're putting up the position, which is a common tactic and propaganda tool for demagogues and dictators, is that you cannot believe the information that is being reported to you. Therefore, I am the sole individual, I am the sole proprietor of institution information, and the sense of safety and justice and liberty that you should feel safe and comfortable in following and trusting. And so when you do that, when you create that doubt in the institution that is supposed to hold these governments and politicians and leaders accountable, that creates the opportunity for you to warp whatever reality you create. And that's how you are able to, warp the mentality, warp the reality of folks who still believe that our government will be overthrown or our government will be reset somehow in September after the failed insurrection that we saw on January 6th of this year. That has impact. What we're seeing is that when we're not holding media outlets accountable for the news that they're reporting, the lies that they're perpetuating, or the propaganda that they're peddling, it has impact. It has the opportunity it has the power to influence, and that influence is what we see throughout the country most recently, and even as we're talking about in our conversations today.
That's a very powerful sentiment you just made. Sometimes these politicians are so slick, Kenya, that the last court that can hold them accountable is the court of public opinion. They are so crafty that criminal courts will not hold them accountable. Civil courts will not hold them accountable, but our court can. And that's why it's important that the media remains strong and independent. Thank you, sister, for being on Indisputable. How can people follow you on social media?
Simple, live from Kenya on just about everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We got more on the other side. Stick and stay, the bullpen is coming, Indisputable.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was too strong coffee? Yes, new twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 15 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively, what do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce 1971 saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
I want you to take on the spirit of one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman, who said these words: if you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. At this particular moment in time, sisters and brothers, we need somebody that is not going to flinch, somebody that's not going to equivocate when it comes to the workaday people of this nation.
You're speaking the language that voters understand, which is you're worth it. I think the key to everything is Nina Turner.
TYT has an exclusive announcement, Move On, which has chosen to endorse Nina Turner for Ohio's 11th congressional district.
We have to tell them right here in the heart.
Right.
Why we're running.
Yes.
And what we're gonna do in those spaces and places to make their lives a better place.
I think Nina can change the entire dynamic of American politics.
Because with these hands, we will rise.
Nina Turner steps into the direct fire sometimes in the name of the people.
And is that we have become numb to some of the very real challenges in this country.
Here comes Nina Turner. Here comes Nina Turner. Hope's back.
If you want clean water, clean air, clean food, keep going. If you want a better country, a better world for yourselves and future generations, you must. And if you know that we are in this fight together, you must.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these comments and we'll get into our next segment. Once again, Indisputable TYT. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. YouTube super chat. Rich in Christ love says love. Well, thank you. Love back to you. Mbali Shali, I think. I'm sure I screwed that up. I do apologize in advance. Education, bam, indisputable, ding, ding, 100, fire. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's get it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we have Ben Q. Ben Q is a columnist and English editor at Elle American. He has some thoughts about the intersection of sports and social justice movements. We may also talk about BLM, Black Lives Matter. Ben, thank you for being on Indisputable. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love the concept of this show, which is basically creating mutual dialogue between conservatives and liberals. I think that's a way forward, not just for America, but the entire humanity effectively. If we can debate these things civilly and respectfully, that's how we're going to find solutions moving forward. So thank you.
And thank you for saying that. Very well said. And I appreciate your sentiment and spirit as it relates to why we do this. Let me first ask you this question because I do not want to presume what you believe. What are your thoughts about players, those that operate as professional athletes, getting involved in social justice issues?
Well, look, I think every sports person has a right to their own voice, and if they really believe, in whatever the movement, and they have a right to express that opinion. My real contention is teams, and this isn't, I'm actually European, I'm from Britain, and this is something we've seen in the European Championships, but it's also something we see with, we've seen a lot over America in the past few years, and currently with the women's national soccer team, are these public demonstrations, basically, that are of a political nature. Now, the reason I really don't like that is that we can get into whatever you think about Black Lives Matter and the social justice movements that are often brought up. But what I really, really object to is this crossing over of sport and politics. Now, in this case, it happens to be left-wing politics, but I would like to think if right-wing politics would be the same thing, because ultimately sport should be able to be enjoyed by a communist, a fascist, a centrist, a liberal, a conservative, a socialist, whoever. Sport really should be for everyone, and it should be one of the few things that unites us. And when people make these sort of outward displays of political, outward political statements right on the pitch, I think that really undermines that unity of what people enjoy about sport, which is the fact that we all love sports, or most of us love sports, and we're there to enjoy the quality of the sport, not be subjected to political statements.
Okay, so let me try to demystify Black Lives Matter as it relates to politics. Black Lives Matter is not a political movement. They do not subscribe to a political party. They are not a part of a political wing of any party. Even some of the more left-leaning parties left to the Democratic Party in the United States of America. Just because something has become politicized does not mean it is inherently political. You have to be very careful about how people will conflate the two. So that's number one. Number two, when we talk about social justice movements were never meant to be political. Let me take you back to the 60s. Dr. King's social justice movement, the civil rights movement of the 1960s and beyond, that was not a political movement. That was a movement for civil and human rights. So that was a movement of dignity. Now, did it become politicized later? Of course it did. All things become politicized on some level. Even sports has some political elements of it if you get in the right room and have the right debate. Let me take you back to what has routinely happened on the field. If you're saying that sports should not have these expressions of various value systems and beliefs. If you're saying that, Q, let me ask you, man, did you have that same philosophy when players, to this day, they routinely engage in team prayer? It's not mandated, but the team can get together, they can pray, they can break from that prayer, and they can play the game. They do this on the field. When they make a touchdown, we have seen players take a knee when they make a touchdown to pray to their God. That is part of their value system. This has been accepted. Is that political? Is that bias? Does that mean that atheists cannot enjoy that game because there's this outward expression of a faith system? Explain that to me. Why has nobody made that an issue?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things I'd like to pick up there. I mean, firstly, you're saying that Black Lives Matter is not inherently political, and it's not linked necessarily to a political movement. But I think, I mean, you can say that, and I think you may be saying that from a genuine place. However, I feel that that's a bit like saying, well, the right to the Second Amendment is not political, even though it's extremely aligned with the Republican Party. The pro-life movement is not political, even though it's extremely aligned with the Republican and conservative movement. So I think the two things are interchangeable, and I think it would be intellectually dishonest to say that Black Lives Matter is not a movement of the left by the left.
Well, explain this to me, but before you go to your second point, what is it about the movement for Black lives that makes it political? And if it is in fact political, as you say, was the civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. political? Was the protest of Muhammad Ali simply political? Were all of these things political and nothing else?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that although I very much admire Dr. Martin Luther King, he was protesting against the politics of the day. So I think that was inherently a political movement. Now, the way that the way that society's developed means that a vast majority of Americans now agree with Martin Luther King, but a vast majority of Americans don't agree with Black Lives Matter. So to get to your point there, I think that they are. Yes, Dr. Martin Luther King was a political figure as well as a religious figure, but he obviously, what he did at the time did go against the grain. You're absolutely right, but people have come to accept that. Now, maybe it'll be that people will come to accept Black Lives Matter. My opinion is that they won't. So I think that really you can't separate politics from Black Lives Matter or from Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, I do think that Dr. Martin Luther King's message of judge every man by the content of his character, not the color of his skin, is very different to a lot of the kind of stuff that's coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, let me go ahead. Let's talk about that because that one statement is utilized primarily by white people out of context. I actually teach policy at the university. I teach a class on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and I teach critical race theory. I've been teaching critical race theory for 5 years. So let's talk about that statement in just a moment. But I have to address first your issue of conflating politics and policy. While Dr. King's movement was not a movement against the politics of the day, it was in fact a movement against the policy of today, of that particular day. Policy is a social contract between the community and the government. He was fighting for a better social contract, evidenced by the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked with Democrats and Republicans. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked with those on the left and the right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. actually left the safety net of Black Republican elites in the city of Atlanta that his father was connected to in order to say, we are opening this discussion up for Democrats to get right on this policy. So it was not a fight against the politics or partisan politics. It was literally a fight for better policies. Let me go to your statement about Dr. King and the content of your character statement. Have you heard that whole speech?
Well, I mean, I couldn't recite it, but yeah, I've listened to it. It's part of history class and on YouTube. Okay. But I mean, I couldn't recite the speech for you.
Okay, so in that speech, Dr. King did talk about how people should be judged. but he was not talking about it in a euphoric sense. He was not talking about it as a practical dynamic of America, but something that maybe could happen one day in the future. So let's talk about what he actually did say about policies in the United States of America. He said that his American dream had actually become an American nightmare with an NBC reporter during an interview after 1964. Dr. King also said that in order to correct what has happened to black folks in America, you need a systems approach rather than an individual approach. Here's what he meant by that. Individual racist people are not your actual problem, but the policies and the statutes are the problem. It is the system bias that's the problem. One of his proposed remedies was to create a universal basic income, a monthly basic income for black people all in the United States of America as a way to create an economic floor that black people can rise upon. So that was his remedy. Literally, that remedy is a similar remedy that people that teach critical race theory talk about. They talk about it from a system perspective rather than an individualistic perspective. He also said that it is one thing to sit at a restaurant where you want to sit. It's another thing to be able to own the restaurant. Well, that was Dr. King making the argument of equity rather than simple equality. He said in another interview that what he was fighting for became a courtesy rather than true equality. He called it genuine equality was not achieved with the civil rights movement. He was critical of his own movement later in his life. So if we're gonna quote Dr. King, brother, on this show, make sure you quote him correctly and take the time to research the man rather than utilize him for a talking point during a debate. I actually have studied the life of Dr. King, and I would really appreciate it if more white people would do the same rather than quoting one damn comment out of one speech that you barely listened to. Do you understand my frustration with that?
I'd say I understand what you're saying, and I accept that I'm no expert on Martin Luther King, but I think that one phrase is actually the encapsulates for me and for lots of people across America and the world the core of the anti-racist movement, which is that basically we should not be seeing people and judging them and treating them on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. So,
but we agree on that.
I accept your criticism, and I'm not going to push back on you on the matter of Martin Luther King because I'm no expert in him.
Okay.
But I think
I do need to correct you on one factual point. You said the vast majority of Americans are against Black Lives Matter. Media Matters, they have this highlighted. The study was done. Actually, 51% of Americans agree with the movement for Black Lives or Black Lives Matter. So you're incorrect on that fact. 51% of Americans are for the movement of Black Lives Matter. Go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's impossible to be against the core and the name of the movement, which is that, Black Lives Matter and Black Lives do indeed matter. And I think that, 95% of Americans would agree on that.
But that's not true. But that's not true. 49% of Americans disagree with it. So you said that most Americans
the movement, and I'm one of those people who is opposed to Black Lives Matter as a movement. I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to the core the core idea, which is that black people should not be getting gunned down or choked or whatever for by police in the way that George Floyd was.
Ben, what elements of the movement do you disagree with for Black Lives?
Well, everything from defunding the police to questions around the nuclear family and overthrowing capitalism. I mean, it's just completely antithetical to everything a conservative believes in. But one thing
describe what you believe defunding the police
is this question, though. You said that Dr. Martin Luther King was very, did not want or was happy to work with Republicans and Democrats. I'd love to hear how Black Lives Matter are working with Republicans and black Republican voices to create a better America for Black Americans.
Yeah, because I would love to hear how many Black Republicans
part of the left wing of the Democratic Party.
I got you. So let me respond to that, Ben. I would love to hear how Black Republican leaders are working with these young Black leaders in the Black Lives Matter movement as well. I would like to see what olive branch they have extended to this organization or the movement itself. All I have seen is a token approach and they have basically deflated the agenda that many of them believe in. Let's talk about defund the police since you brought it up. What's your understanding of defund the police? What do you think that means?
Well, I mean, the core of it means that taking a lot of the resources, perhaps all the resources, away from police departments across America. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, a recipe for disaster. And I think most people would agree with that. I mean, what else can it mean? If you have a different definition of it, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Defund the police is actually the middle ground. Eliminating the police is the extreme. Defund the police means to prioritize the budget or reprioritize the budget and reimagine what policing can be. Everyone who watches me, they know that I use the example of Ithaca, New York, because Ithaca, New York did not wait for a George Floyd incident or a Breonna Taylor incident. Ithaca, New York, they looked at their 911 calls and they said, you know what? 51% of our 911 calls did not even require a police officer, but it required a social worker or a community liaison. So what did Ithaca, New York do? They decided to create a new policy. The city council voted on this policy that said for every 2 police officers that either get fired, transfer, or resign, we will hire at least 1 social worker to the ranks of the police department, because our community has told us that we are in fact in need of this more so by way of 911 calls than we are in need of the other. Now let's look at the stats, brother. Police solve 2% of major crimes. That is a recent study that just came out 2 weeks ago. 2% is their success rate in the United States of America. It's at 11% in districts that perform to a higher level, but that's your maximum is 11% solve rate by these police officers. There's not a city in America, brother, that has been able to arrest itself out of socioeconomic dysfunction. Name me one city that arrested so many people that it resolved their issue of criminality. There is not one. You have the city of Chicago, they have more police officers than ever before. They have a budget higher than they ever had since the beginning of their charter. Their crime is higher than ever before, especially their violent crime. Their crime is going up. They have more cops, more arrests, more prosecutions, crime is still going up. They got more money, crime is still going up. Here's what you have to do, and I want to get your response on this. If you're not addressing the underlying issues that lead to the criminal activity, such as alcohol addiction, drug addiction, mental health disorders, crimes of survival, if you're not addressing those issues that lead to 88% of the arrests in any city in the first place, how do you think you're going to arrest yourself out of that problem, Ben? How?
Well, listen, I just want to kind of turn that on its head and say that I completely agree with you that actually arresting your way out of problems is not going to fix things. However, if that is really what you believe, which is a more social approach to policing, I completely agree with you, but that's not the message that is coming from Black Lives Matter, or at least that's not the message that's getting through to conservatives. The message that we're getting is that the police are inherently bad, they're inherently destructive, they're inherently out to get black people, and therefore they should have their police departments defunded. If that is truly the idea that you have for policing, which is a more social approach, so that if someone's being murdered or raped, then obviously you send out a serious force of people to investigate the incident. But if someone is reporting alcohol abuse, or someone has overdosed, or whatever, or someone's selling drugs, then a social worker might actually be a better solution. I agree with you on that, but that's not the message that's getting through to the rest of America.
But is it?
Be to you to say, let's not defund the police, let's reform the police.
Well, yes.
The rallying cry of Black Lives Matter is defund, and defund to me means take and strip the money away from them.
Well, police departments have been historically defunded without the campaign. It's called budget cuts, brother. So there are budget cuts that happen to police departments all over the United States of America. As a matter of fact, I have a list of Republicans that recently voted for budget cuts in their jurisdictions by way of a recent vote. So, but they would say, oh, we're not for defund the police. Well, they literally voted to defund the police. Defunding the police has been a routine operation for various governments all across the United States of America, and they call it budget cuts. So let's be very clear. The reason why I actually agree with the terminology and campaign defund the police is because it got your attention. If we would have still been saying reform, 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 nobody would have been paying attention to that conversation. But defund the police got everybody's attention. And here's what they mean by that. They do mean reprioritize, reimagine. Eliminating the police is what you have conflated to defund the police. But here's what I want you to do, brother. I want you to research people like Shar Bates from BET, who had a town hall with other police officers and explained what defund the police means. People like Councilman Antonio Brown, a progressive that sits on the Atlanta City Council, who routinely votes to fund the police, but also has voted to create a different 911 operation system that allows for a social worker to respond rather than a cop if you hit a particular button on the 911 dispatch call. I want you to research people like Park Cannon, state representative, who's for defunding the police, but explains that it is about reimagining what police actually do. And police officers, they want it too, brother, when you break it down the right way, because cops don't want to respond for things they're not trained to respond to. You have to reimagine this whole thing in order to get to an actual remedy.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll take you at your word on that, and I would say that it's the onus is on you then, and the rest of people in the Black Lives Matter movement, which I assume you feel associated with, to say, actually, now we've got your attention. This is, when we talk about defund, we mean reimagine, but that's not the message that's got through so far.
Well, the message is out there, and I think some of it is willful ignorance to say that we don't know that this is the full message. And some of it, I agree, is because those on the left, especially Democrats, are unable to message properly. So I give you that 100%. Brother, my producers are telling me I'm out of time. Man, it has been a great, open, transparent discussion. I appreciate you being in the bullpen.
Thank you very much for having me, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember this. We have Deep Dive coming next. With Jordan with Deep Dive. We're gonna make sure we go straight to that right after this show. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.